Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 440. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together and we talk about the books we read this week. Coming up on today's show, we have Absolute Superman issue 3, Batman 156, Batgirl issue 3, Birds of Prey 17, JSA issue 3, Shazam 19, Poison Ivy 29, Two-Face issue 2, Justice League The Atom Project issue 1, and Batman Full Moon issue 3. So, healthy enough. I had 8 books, which was significantly less than the last couple of weeks. Matt somehow still made it to 10 though, because he read that Atom Project book as well as Poison Ivy. So, I mean, Matt's he's on Punisher, basically, is what I'm saying.
Middle name is Frank Castle.
Yes. So yes, that's what's coming up on the show this week. So, yeah, plenty to talk about. Some interesting books, some good books, maybe some bad books. Possibly. We'll see. We'll find out. Before we get into it, Matt, how was your week, your New Year's, anything? So,
working the job that I do, we get the major holidays off. So we get New Year's Day off. Which effectively, it being on a Wednesday, we had 2 Mondays this week, and that's just terrible. So, like, worked 2 days, was off for 1 day, came back for 2 days, and it's just like, makes it hard to do anything. So, pretty busy week, just trying to get caught up on stuff. A lot of that was spent reading comics and watching Cobra Kai, which I really enjoy. So yeah.
Funny you say that, because the last comic I read, one of the first lines of dialogue was comparing the Dark Realm to Vegas on a Monday morning, and I thought, well, I guess Matt will have some reference for that.
Yes, there's the thing. I don't hang out in that part of Vegas, so yeah, for those reasons, but yes, it is very dire.
There's quite enough time for me this week. I have a weird recommendation though. I don't know if you've seen The Beekeeper yet, but
I have.
Yeah, surprisingly fun, I will say. I mean, it's a stupid movie. Don't get me wrong. It's stupid, and that's why it was fun. But David Ayer actually made a good movie finally. So
you forget that it's a David Ayer movie because the movies that we've come to associate him with.
Yeah. Yeah, all he had to do was completely give up his style, and all of a sudden, so some gold was there to be had. It's just a dumb action movie from the 90s. It just happens to be made today. But, I mean, it may be Jason Statham's best movie, not counting when he's got like a bit part in something, But in terms of him being the lead, probably the best Jason Statham movie I've seen.
He's taking it serious, but it feels like he shouldn't be. Like, it's this weird thing, like...
Oh, he has to, though. That's why it's funny. He has to take it seriously, or it's not funny.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was shocking. I watched it. It popped up on one of the streamers earlier in the year, and I gave it a watch just because it's Statham. Like, I remember reading a thing that said that we should just call all Statham movies, not by their title, but by, like, Statham 17, right? Because they all just feel like they're part of a greater whole. And I watched it with that in mind. I was like, oh, no, this is better than just calling it, Statham 19. There are parts. It felt like it wanted to say something, with who the villains are and whatnot. But I mean, it kind of gets lost in
I don't think it wanted to say something. I think you can try and ascribe something to it if you want, but you shouldn't, because it's a dumb action movie. Just accept as it is. Every single time a character, whether it was Statham himself making like references or analogies to beehives, or other characters at the FBI or villains talking about, the beekeeper must protect the hive. Every time they started talking about protecting the hive and Queenslayers and taking it dead set, I was laughing my ass off. It was so stupid in the best possible way. So that was a pleasant surprise. I was not expecting to come out of Beekeeper feeling positive. A couple of funny deaths in there as well, just to spice it up. So it's not a good movie, but I recommend it for dumb action movie aficionados. So I'm in 2024 catch-up season, which is why I happened to watch it.
Watch that
one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Pretty much what's going on right now. Squid Game is back for season 2, so that's kind of an ongoing thing at the moment as well. So yeah, pretty much. All right, let's get into the Kindle rankings, the list formerly known as the ComiXology top 10. So all the books came out the same day this week, which was nice.
Okay.
Which was
January
January
that was my first
1st.
Question.
Yeah, so
I didn't know if it did that like last week.
I mean, New Year's Day, while technically a holiday to some, is definitely not as much of a everything shuts down like Christmas does.
Yeah, it's definitely different from Christmas in that way.
Yeah. So what is your guess for number 1 this week?
I'm gonna go with a little bit of reckless optimism and say Absolute Superman 3.
I mean, that's not reckless at all. It was number 1 its last 2 issues. And it's also number 1 for its 3rd issue. So you tried to phrase that like you were taking a hopeful shot at the dark, but I'm like, no, this was expected.
Here's the thing though, like when it comes to certain Marvel books and like something like Saga, I always feel like it could go between those depending what's going on. You know, and I'm so out on that part of comics, right? There's really all I'm reading right now is DC. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if it, lost out to something like Saga.
Oh, sure, but there's a difference between, it just narrowly misses it and gets to number 2 or 3. But you phrased it as optimism, like it was unlikely to be the case. It was pretty likely based on the past 2 issues. So anyway, yeah, Absolute Superman is number 1. Number 2 is Ultimates. Number 3 is Batman. Number 4 is JSA. Number 5 is Avengers. Number 6 is the Atom Project. That's surprisingly high for that, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Weird. But yeah, number 7 is X-Force. Number 8 is Cable, which is issue 1. Cable Loving Chrome is the full title. Number 9 is X-Factor. And then number 10 is Saga, which is issue 71 of that. So I'm actually, like, what's the end issue number for that? Because I think everyone assumed it'd be about 50 to 60 based on Why the Last Man and Ex Machina and the other big long series that Vaughn had done. But, I mean, yeah, Vaughn and Staples are still doing this, like, a decade later.
And it took a big break, too, right?
Yeah, there was a big break in the middle, yeah. Yeah, so I'm glad it's still going, though. I am looking forward to, when it's all said and done, actually going through it from scratch again. Because I read, like, I don't know, 25 issues of it, loved it, but... I'm waiting for it to finish. I imagine a lot of people are at this point just because of all those hiatuses and whatnot. But yeah, for those still picking up in single issues, it's still doing fairly well. Just outside the top 10, Batgirl was number 12, so that did okay. Birds of Prey was 15, Full Moon at 16, Shazam and Two-Face also in that row, meaning they're all in the top 20. A lot of Marvel books this week, though. I mean, which makes sense, because I don't know if you remember, but last week it was very slim on Marvel books, so they didn't put a lot out for Christmas week. So, yeah, it's an okay showing for DC, given how many Marvel books there are. I mean, it still got 4 books in the top 10. Marvel got 5, and then 1 Image book with Saga. So, it feels like they're trading blows week to week. We're just, 1 week it'll be like 7 DC and 3 Marvel, and then the following week it'll flip. And they seem to just based on what's coming out in each week. But
2 heavyweights just trading.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the top 10. Which, yeah, we could pretty much go straight into the books this week, which is nice. I mean, I guess, okay, there's one bit of movie casting news, I guess, which we'll just mention. And I'll just sort of shrug and say sure at it, which is Jason Momoa is going to be Lobo in Superwoman or Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which he's better suited for that part than he ever was Aquaman. I will say that. But I just Jason Momoa just is always Jason Momoa. He's the same guy in everything I've ever seen him in, and I'm not excited at the thought of him being there.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Lobo, if I remember right, Woman of Tomorrow, he's like maybe an issue, maybe half an issue. Right?
Yeah, that was the thing. When I heard that announcement, I was like, I don't remember Lobo being that major factor in that book. Yeah. I was struggling to even remember him showing up. Yeah. So, maybe they're making a bigger rollout of it for him because they want to put him in there. I'm not a big Lobo fan either, to be fair. So it's not like I'm that excited by the prospect of Lobo being a big deal in it. So,
And he feels more naturally more like Lobo than he does Aquaman too. So
Yeah,
it's just a vibe.
Yeah, it's like he's obviously more suited for this, but I don't really like Lobo that much, and two, I'm just kind of sick of Momoa's shtick, so I'm left in a place of like, eh.
Did you see Fast X?
Not as of yet, no.
Okay, I haven't watched it yet either, but I hear he's easily the best part of that. So jury's still out. I haven't seen that. But yeah, from what I hear, he changes up what he normally does a little bit, that is what it is. But curious to see what they do with them in the movie, right? Like, are we going prosthetic? Are we going mostly CG? Like, what kind of? Are we gonna paint him up like they did Batista as Drax?
Yeah, it shouldn't be CG. It should just be makeup.
Yeah. That's what you'd hope for.
I would actively say that it would be a mistake for them to make it a CG thing. It should be makeup. There's nothing about Lobo that says he shouldn't be. Sure, yeah, it should be a muscly guy playing him, but it should just be a guy painted in the silver and black or whatever colors technically Lobo is.
Just give me him with the space dolphins and I'll be good.
So yeah, worth mentioning. That was pretty much it though. I guess still quiet after Christmas, not a lot of news. That's it. I mean, the comic book news specifically tends to be quite cyclical in terms of like just when solicits are about to come out. So we'll probably have something next week, assuming there's anything. Because I don't think we'll have solicits next week because of when the month started. But if there's anything big to announce prior to solicits, we'll have it next week. But we don't always have that, so it just kind of depends on what they've got.
Yeah, occasionally like a story will leak out that's pre-solicits, and then it'll drop with the solicits. I feel like the last couple Tom King book announcements were like that.
Yeah, it's not even a leak. It's just like they like to give like one big new thing a spotlight a week in advance, and then they don't do that for every new number one that's going to be in there. So some stuff's just a surprise in there. But so we may have some of that next week. I believe we might have a 3-person show next week though. Connor might be here.
What kind of Faustian deal is this?
I'm just warning you now, Matt, that the ginger might appear.
I feel like if people are just experiencing us here on the show and not elsewhere in social media, I have actually a very good relationship with Connor. It's very like brother-like at times, and I shit on him constantly here, just because it's fun. He's not here, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, I see him for Star Trek reviews on the regular again, so whatever.
You get your own. You're the Data to his what? What character in Star Trek would you guys be? Or are you Spock to his Kirk?
I don't know if I like that. I thought you were going for a Data to his lore. That he's the evil, shitty version of me.
So, see, I don't know Trek. There's an evil Data? Yes.
Lore, his brother, technically.
Well, then I stumbled upon that by accident.
Yes. That's why I thought you were going with that, and then you just sort of like, petered out into nothing.
I don't want to say Data to Picard, right? That's too nice, So I just went for the next Star Trek thing that I knew.
Yeah, if anything, he's like a Ferengi.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Oh God, he's like Quark. Quark's Ferengi, right?
Yeah, Quark's Ferengi, yes. And Joey's played by?
No, who?
He's played by what's his name, Sherman, who played the Principal Snyder on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh, you can tell when you watch them talk. You can tell it's him.
To be fair, I haven't watched much Deep Space Nine, so I just know of things.
Yeah, I assumed you hadn't, but I mean, if you would, if you remember Snyder at all, you'd recognize his voice and the way he kind of looks at people and stuff.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, didn't know that.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the books then. Kicking off with Absolute Superman issue 3, Jason Aaron writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. And this issue, barring 1 or 2 pages at the end, is all flashback. It's all on Krypton, on the build-up to its destruction. Well, it doesn't quite get to the destruction yet, but it's imminent by the end of the issue. It is
building. Like, it is, yeah. We're at a critical mass.
Yeah, so it kind of... It does some interesting things here. It really sets up this idea that Clark already has it in him to want to be a writer and report on things and tell the truth, because he gets into trouble for like not using the Kryptonian dictionary or whatever they called it.
Yeah, and I gotta give Aaron credit here that he makes Krypton feel like such a dystopia. Like in other versions that we said, like even just like in the Mark Waid action run, like it felt still like, oh, we know Krypton's doomed, and yeah, some of the politicians are kind of crappy, but it didn't feel much like a dystopia. This version of Krypton, it just feels like it's barely hanging on, but just with the way that the L's talk about the different guilds and how they congratulate Clark for wanting to think for his own. Well, Cal, he's not Clark yet, but Cal for wanting to think on his own and all that other stuff. And yeah, it's kind of subtle and it's just underneath, but it feels like something rotting underneath the a nice cover.
Yeah, I mean it's Clark talking about his his last like trip out to like camp or whatever with his parents, and we see these big red crystals that look like the Fortress of Solitude. They call it the Rouse. Were you trying to do that quietly, because it did not work?
I was. I was trying to wait, and then but the time he just did not work.
So yeah, basically they're hiding from him right now. What's going to happen? They both know that Krypton's doomed, and they've not told him yet. But Clark, over the course of this issue, between noticing his parents working away at building something in the barn and whatever else, and also noticing that there's... this is the other thing I kind of liked, actually, is this idea that a lot of like animals are dying, and it kind of looks like they're getting kryptonite poisoning. It's almost like this idea of kryptonite's already starting to happen on the planet while it's still there, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, it's like the planet's rotting. Yeah, it's like the planet's rotting from the inside out. And now it's starting to reach the surface, and of course the animals these are like harbingers of doom, kind of.
Yeah, the rabbits and farm animals and all that kind of thing are all dying. So that's all super interesting. But ultimately, Jor-El still wants to like try and convince the council or the Science League what's going to happen, that they should do something, and they're basically just silenced. In fact, hell, even Superman or Clark's like paper that he tried to write for class was kind of like, it wasn't just given into trouble for it. It was like taken away and everything was deleted. Like, no, this is all redacted. You can't talk about this. We're not doing this. So
censored, as I believe the word.
Yeah. So there's something clearly up, and it all kind of bubbles up to this revelation when Clark's on a field trip with his class to where the Science League and all that like run things. He sees his dad being carted away with these armed guards. But he takes the opportunity afterwards to ask one of the guards who... Actually, no, this comes a little bit later. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. But he has to run and get his mom and say, hey, Dad's been like killed prisoner because he tried to tell them something. And Lara comes out wearing basically the suit that he's going to have when he's older, with the sort of sun gauntlet looking things and whatnot. And also a massive freaking like solar gun.
Look, I'm going to say, I don't think that Jor-El and Lara have ever been cooler than they have been in these 3 issues.
I will say, that panel of her coming out with the gun and saying, I'm going to get your dad back, I don't think I've ever once thought of Lara L as being hot, except for this issue where I'm like, what? They're trying to make her kind of hot in this issue, and it's kind of working.
Very, very much Sarah Connor in T2, right?
Got a little bit of that vibe.
We're doing this. And also the fact that she tells Clark to stay there, and if you need anything, contact Soul. And he goes, "What's Soul?" And then the voice that we've seen in the lettering box, activates.
The AI, or for lack of a better term. Although he doesn't stay there, like she says, you're coming with, and if anything happens, to run back and ask Saul,
and get Soul,
because he goes with her. Notably because when she starts like blasting through all these like hallways and whatnot to get to Jor, Clark actually grabs one of the guards and says, "Hey, tell me your login details, and I won't. I'll ask my mom kindly to stop shooting you." And so, which seemingly works, because he gets into the computer and sort of reads like what's going on, and what he sees is, and I kind of got this just from this moment, but he explains it later when he's talking to his parents, and the story that he kind of leaks out there to the world. But this is effectively an arc. He's seeing these ships being built for the rich to leave Krypton. And, of course, because this is an alternate universe, I'm thinking, wait, did they all leave? Are all the rich assholes from Krypton still alive out there in space? Because it seems kind of possible.
Yeah, because the field trip that they go to is the city they go to on this field trip is Kandor, right? So I was wondering if is this the Absolute's version of Kandor?
Yeah, they're just on ships traveling on a bottled city. Yeah.
Bottle and being wrapped up and whatnot. And yeah, I thought that was a nice twist here.
Yeah, no, I immediately I was like, oh no, they do know. It's not that they don't believe Jar, because normally in like Krypton lore and Superman lore, they are ignorant. They're like, no, this isn't going to happen. They're arrogant, and then they're caught off guard by actually being real, and it's too late to do anything. Yep. This is flipping it to say, no, they know about it. They're just keeping it secret so they can save themselves and not like deal with the rest of the population. And that's actually, more sinister. It's a lot more evil.
Yeah, it is. And the fact too that the labor guild, right? And Clark at the beginning knowing like he doesn't feel like he wants to join the Science Guild or any of the other ones because he feels like he's part of the Earth. And like when they get onto that big skyscraper on the field trip, he's just like, we're too far away from the ground, which I also think is a fun little, a little tweak on Superman.
You threw me there because you said Earth. I'm like, what do you mean Earth? No. It's not Earth.
Yeah, the ground, like the ground, the Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, but you wouldn't call it the Earth on Krypton.
Does Clark say the dirt? They're too far from the dirt then?
Probably dirt, yeah. But yeah, it would be cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Or something.
No, it would not be that. But yeah, it would, But anyways, it's too far off the ground. And again, that's a fun little tweak considering Superman and flight and whatnot. What we come to expect with Superman is that he's not comfortable being that far away from the ground.
Yeah, he wants to be amongst the people, or he wants to be down there with the hardworking people. And then the other big reveal, because obviously, like, okay, we heard earlier on, his parents are building something in the bar, and they're driving back in these speeder bikes. They're going to show him, they're going to explain to him what's going on. And he reveals that he's figured out Krypton's dying based on what he's seen and what he's just read on the computer and all that. But the big reveal here is that, no, they didn't just build a little ship for him. They built a ship for them. In fact, they're going to try and even take anyone else they can. We can maybe fit. I mean, obviously they can't fit everyone, but like, hey, we can fit some family, we can fit some friends, some neighbors. Maybe Kara ends up on this ship because they actually say the word cousin at one point. Yeah. Or cousins. So
and family, yeah. It's not just them. They're not thinking of, this isn't like you said with traditional, right, where they only have enough time to get Clark out of there as a baby.
Yeah, although having said that, we don't know how these events are going to play out. It's entirely possible that the events might end up it being just Clark because of whatever happens at the last minute before they're able to go into the ship, or because it is the Absolute Universe, it could be all three of them. It could be three of them plus more. Yeah. We don't know. Yeah.
It definitely made me think though too the fact that we haven't seen the Kents yet. Outside of that farm.
We'll get to that later because that was actually something that I thought was really neat about this story. When we get to that last couple of pages and it goes to Smallville and you get your sort of first glimpse at Martha Kent, I was thinking, oh yeah, because as soon as it went to Smallville, I went, yeah, that's a good point. If this plays out differently and possibly his parents come with him potentially, then what role do the Kents have, if anything? But then the last page kind of implies that no, like there was some motherly role for Martha Kent to Superman or someone else potentially. It may not be him because all we know is that she never gave birth to any kids, but she asked for her son.
Yep.
Now we assume that's Clark because traditional Superman, but they could be setting us up for a swerve here. What if Martha raised Zod?
Right.
I mean, that's a bit out there, but you know what I mean.
And if you notice too, the military guild, their symbol, like the labor symbol, is what we associate with the House of L, the S. The military guild is the Zod symbol. It kind of makes that Z. So there's little hints of Zod thrown in.
Yeah, I mean that's basically how the issue ends. Is that Clark says, "Where are we going?" Like sort of the optimism in his eyes, and our final couple pages is or just one page even is the retirement home in Smallville. And the two like nurses are talking about how she doesn't have any next to kin, she doesn't have any kids, but she keeps asking for her son. In fact, Martha specifically she's a bit delirious here, so maybe we shouldn't read into this too much, but she does refer to whoever she's talking about as Angel, which does imply someone who fell from the sky. Yeah.
And also that this is the stuff on Krypton is meant to be from 6 years ago too, right?
That's true.
So
and
she's pretty old as well, right? So at this point, who knows what happens in between the fight from Krypton and Smallville.
Well, no, but I think it raises a bigger question. I think you're missing something even bigger there. If the stuff in Krypton's only 6 years ago, then it kind of implies whoever Martha raised, assuming it's not Clark, is from before the destruction of Krypton. So what are we going to find? So what are we going to find out later about someone who left early for some reason? Right,
that makes sense too.
Because 6 years, 6 years is not enough time. Even if Superman gets to Earth like 6 months, and even I assume it'd be longer than that. But let's just say it's 6 months after they leave Krypton, and somehow needs to be adopted. Like, I don't know. It's a little bit quick for her to like be on her deathbed and be talking about her son as if she raised him when he was already like 12 or whatever he is. So I don't know. I think there's some interesting like things to be revealed here. It feels like it's setting us up for some more swerves and some more spins on how this stuff is actually working. So
yeah, because if you look at the picture by the table, right, it looks like it's someone with dark hair that what we think of as Clark, but this is not how our Clark, how absolute Clark looks, right, with the long hair and whatever else.
Well, I mean, that picture's at an angle that's so skewed that you can't really, like, other than the dark hair, you cannot tell anything from that image. It's intentionally pretty vague. Like, you can tell it's probably, but I'll be honest, I don't even think you can tell from that image if it's a male or female. You can't. That's true. That could easily be a woman standing with the Kents.
That's true. Oh my God, what if it's Laura that's the angel, right? And she says son though, so.
But does she? Oh, she does. Yeah, my sweet angel boy. Yeah. She does say boy.
Yeah, it's angel boy.
Ignore my questions of gender then. But my point being though is that that could easily turn out to be anyone but Clark as well.
Yeah.
From that image.
Definitely some curveballs being thrown out through here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like the decision to make this mostly a flashback after, where issue 2 left off at, so we get to see more of the Krypton stuff and how much different it is. And it keeps, showing how much, the whole rotting of Krypton, right, from inside out, and the upper guilds knowing about this and having their own plans before. It does add a sinister quality to it that they're just going to let everybody else, suffer. And that kind of would definitely inform Clark later on in the stuff that we've seen, right? With him helping the miners and all that other stuff.
Yeah, he's helping the people on the ground who are being taken advantage of by the rich and the powerful, which is very much the sort of people on Krypton who screwed over like entire, basically everyone, really.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I mean, it sets up a lot of his motivations for sure. It gives him a lot of like stuff already built into his character that he feels strongly about. But again, let's not just shove aside the whole part here right before the issue ends, where he has leaked what he's learned from the computer as a news story out to everyone on Krypton, right? Because Jor-El and Lara see it playing out on their smartphone or equivalent Krypton technology.
Yeah,
and they're like, wait, they're talking about this, and because they learn about the ships, because much as they knew about Krypton dying, like Clark has actually revealed new things to them through this reporting, and that ties back into what Clark was saying earlier, is that his words feel like they mean something to him, whereas like just copying the words of other people doesn't feel special, doesn't feel like they're his. So this it's actually really interesting to sort of like build this like journalistic passion into him, and admittedly they can't usually most times you can't do that on Krypton because he's like one at most by the time he's leaving. But it's interesting to do it this way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't know.
no, for sure.
I think it's interesting. I think it's a really interesting like quirk or not even quirk. That's underplaying it, but just a different way of telling the story of how he becomes who he is. So no, super fascinating. I think out of the three Absolute books, this is the one where it feels like it's flipping almost everything. Where, well, there's obviously stuff flipped in the other books, and especially the last issue, Absolute Batman. I really liked how his mother being alive left to a very un-Batman decision by the end of the issue. So that book's doing a good job of using what's different to really drive the story. I feel like this one, there's so much up in the air that is still a mystery because we don't know how much has changed, but it's implying a lot of things. There's a lot more of like a puzzle box element to talking about it, and like, okay, like who's surviving Krypton, who's alive, who's not alive, who grew up with who, questions.
Yeah, it's really playing with what we think we know versus how it's going to be presented. Because Wonder Woman's been mostly straightforward, right, from the beginning. Like, yes, that last issue really threw a curveball into what it means to be, a hero. But for the most part, it's just it's still Wonder Woman with some stuff swapped. So not so much of a mystery.
Which is fine. So which is fine because it's not trying to be. It's like that's trying to be this more hardcore monster story. Batman's trying to be this ultra gritty take on Gotham and all those characters. This is going for something very different from those two, but they're all benefiting from being so different. That's part of what's actually making the line of books work so well right now. Is that all three Absolute books feel very unique on their own and very successful at their own thing that they're all doing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. That all their strengths, each book's unique. They all have an identity. It just doesn't feel like a line-wide thing, right? It's like, oh yeah, this is the Absolute version, and they are different, but each book shows you exactly how they're different, and they're different in different ways.
Yeah,
I think helps because I like coming back for the mystery of this one, right? But in Batman, I like seeing it play out how Snyder is unveiling, just how similar this Batman is. It's still Batman, right? But like you said, I still haven't read 3, so I don't know what decision you're talking about.
Oh, well, I'm glad I was vague then.
Yes. So I'm curious to see where that goes. But definitely with Wonder Woman, it still, from all the Wonder Woman books that I've read, it still feels very much in line. But, it's just I guess this is what the Ultimate line felt like when it first came out, right? Is back when Marvel was doing that thing. It was like, oh, here's different versions or refreshed versions of these heroes. And each of them had an identity until the point that it got to where, it just was, Marvel, but, I'm trying to remember the exact thing that I read about when they decided to end the Ultimate line. It was like they were just repeating stories now through these new different heroes. That doesn't feel like this, just through 3, of course, but they all have this unique identity. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit different. Like, as much as it's the easiest thing to compare it to is the Ultimate stuff from Marvel from 20 plus years ago, this feels a lot more focused because it's kind of tied into something that's building up to actually interact with the main universe. Now, that's not to say that all this stuff will just end when that happens. I think since they're all successful, it's entirely possible there'll be a desire to keep absolutes of some of the characters going forever. And if that happens, then cool. Especially if they're distinct enough where they feel like they're worth having around as alternate versions. But and we haven't really mentioned Rafa Sandoval's art. It is pretty good. I enjoyed it. I think all the big money moments, whether it's very, very, I mean, Lara gets multiple splash page moments in this where she's in her full body armor, or she's saying she's going to get Jor out of prison. Those moments are quite good. I like the 2-page kind of layout, which is lots of horizontal panels of when Clark just sort of drives around on his little bike thing and sees all the dead animals and is he's becoming aware. He's discovering. He's reporting, basically. He's investigating. Yeah. And he's finding all these things. I thought those handled well, and I think it really sticks out as well is that other than the sort of the green kryptonite looking mist coming from these dead animals, the color green does not appear at all in this story.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it really pops out and feels like, oh no, danger. The green, which is funny because red's normally a danger color, but red here is treated as no, some of the just the natural monoliths that are here are red.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just this kind of interesting color distinction. But obviously, it makes sense to us because with Superman, green is the dangerous color because that's the one that counteracts him.
Well, yeah. Even when they try to attack Clara, right? The military guys, and they say commencing lethal injection, right? That mist that comes out of there is green. Is that same dangerous?
That's true. You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So yeah, definitely some storytelling via coloring here.
Yeah. Yeah. Green's the danger. It's almost like you know, people make fun of Green Lantern for having the weakness yellow for a long time before they fixed it.
Yeah.
And they didn't retcon it, but they retconned an explanation and then fixed their explanation.
Right.
I almost wonder sometimes if they basically just copied Kryptonite, but they just took the, like, okay, Kryptonite's green because it's the opposite of red, basically, which is what Superman's symbol is. And they basically just sort of did that with yellow and green. Not that yellow's the opposite of green, but, you know, same idea.
I get what you're saying.
But they didn't, like, give it a reason. They just said, no, just the color's the weakness. It's just the, you know, it's not a specific thing like Kryptonite. It's just the color of yellow. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, green representing danger thematically is a cool touch, which I like. So, really good. I think as well, I mean, Sandoval really has to do a lot with the performances of the characters here. There's a lot of moments here where, you know, they're looking glum, like when the Kents, or not the Kents, sorry, the L's, I should say, are like hiding the truth from Clark, and they're kind of being gloom, whereas he's happy because he's still just out on a trip. But then by the end, where you see that they're all kind of excited because they think they're all going to get a chance to leave together. And then, of course, for the story purposes, we genuinely don't know if that's going to happen in this case. And that's usually not the case. Usually when we get a flashback to Krypton, we know how it's going to end. But here there's so much possibility open. So, yeah, absolute Superman. What are you giving it, Matt?
I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I might even be tempted to stretch to the 9, honestly. Surprisingly, Connor was a little more down on Absolute Superman.
I'm not surprised.
Than the other two he mentioned, but hey.
Did he give reasons? There was stuff that just not resonating with him, or was this the weird Connor things?
I can't remember what he said. I can't remember, so I'm not going to try and fill in the blanks. All right. Batman, issue 156, legacy number 921. Chip Zdarsky writing with Tony S. Daniel on art. There's something nostalgic to me about Tony S. Daniel on art. Not because I particularly feel any, you know, I don't dislike it, but I don't particularly love it either. It's more just that he happened to be on art on like one of the Batman books when I started reading single issues, so there's just kind of like a weird, he's still kicking about doing Batman books. That's just a weird little thing. Kind
of that DC house style we always talk about, like Tony Daniels, like the perfect example of that. And it also it always reminds me of the New 52 because he was doing so much. So many different books at that point. I think he did a Justice League. He did, I think, Detective, right?
He was writing Batman before the New 52 started, and then he started writing Detective Comics after the New 52 started.
That's right. Because him and Snyder flipped.
Yes.
Because Snyder was on tech, and then he took over Batman. And so and then he did the Superman Wonder Woman book, and he kind of just popped around. So there's some kind of weird nostalgia with it. But yeah. So I mean, last issue was kind of a weird one. There was a lot to kind of take in, and I honestly just feel like the story. Like I like parts of the last issue, which were Bruce having to wrestle with the idea that someone he's looked up to as being purely good and someone that he can sort of live up to might not be perfect and might have done something bad. That side of it I liked. The side of it of Gordon having the affair with like the mayor's wife and like all the like Riddler and Mad Hatter stuff, whatever, I did not care that much. This issue kind of continues that trend where there's a scene that really bugged me, right? So Batman basically takes the glasses, gives them to Bullock and says, oh, hey, like, he was framed, Mad Hatter Tech in here, Riddler's behind it, I'm going to go deal with that, right?
when Gordon gets out of the station about halfway through the issue, he gets out and like Mrs. Nakano is there. And he says, hey, good news, they've got proof that I'm innocent, I didn't kill him. And she gets mad at him and says, oh, hey, you're making this about you. My husband and the father of my child is still gone. This isn't about you. And kind of, like, you know, goes off in a sort of melancholy moment as Jim sits there all sad. And I thought, don't get me wrong, it's not just about him. Clearly there's still something to process there, right? He should be considerate of what you've just lost. However, he thought he was going to go to prison for murder and has just discovered that there's proof that proves that he is innocent. I think he's allowed to be happy. It was the line where she said, you're standing there smiling. I'm like, of course he's smiling. He just found out he's not guilty of murder.
But, and again, too, it's such a soap opera, not in a complimentary way. You can do stuff that's soap opera that's still fun and quirky, and this is not it. Like, the entire affair and her walking away, that was the father of my child. I was like, yeah, but you also had a relationship with this man. Like,
it's so weird because, like, I don't know which version of this I would like more. The one we got, which is that she's mad at him because of everything and storms off, or the version where she is just happy that he's not guilty and embraces him because they're a thing now. It feels like the fact that they're instantly, like, possibly just breaking this relationship up makes it feel like it was just written to make the last issue more juicy and to give Gordon a motive for why he might have actually killed him to trick us. And now that they're immediately throwing it away, it just makes it look as shallow as it was, which is why it felt shit the last issue in the first place. So
yeah, for sure. Because there is a good way to do this with that and the whole moral complexity of it, and if it was like kill or be killed kind of deal, and, you know, for Gordon to turn around and it not be him because of the Riddler tech and whatever, you know, some of the stuff is just too clever by half from Zdarsky, where he's just putting hats on hats, and here it's
there's just no way to, like, that's what I'm saying, like, say, at least if, like, they, because I'm not even talking about the tech side of it or anything, or what the villains are doing. I'm just talking about their relationship. If they were staying together and this scene ended with them kind of like saying they'll be there for each other and this was going to be a thing moving forward, as much as I thought the way it was introduced felt kind of cheap, at least it's like, okay, but you're introducing this because you actually want this to be a thing for a while. You want to actually explore Gordon in a relationship with a new person and have that be a new status quo. I'd at least respect it, and then in hindsight I'd be like, well, yeah, the way it was introduced was kind of weird, but at least it was because you wanted to do something with it. The fact that it's already seems to be just falling apart, it just makes it feel like, oh no, it was just a cheap trick.
Well, because there was stuff to do with her, because she was already, right, when Tamaki was writing this and she introduced the mayor, and the fact that she was kind of like a work widow, because Gotham is such a mess that he's always at work, and so she ends up getting depressed because he's never around and she's raising the kid as a single mom, right? There's so much room to explore stuff with her, and now it just feels like we used her as a prop for Gordon, you know, and now, like, what do we do with her? Now she's no longer the mayor's wife, right? Do we just forget about her? Does she lose any of, like, it just feels like a wasted opportunity.
The weird thing is, though, is that, I mean, I don't disagree with what you just said, but I also think Gordon just feels like a prop in this as well. I don't think he gets a good character story out of this either, because it's rushed through this so quick. So I don't think either of them really get anything out of it, unless they do something with it in the next issue or two, which at this point, I don't know if they will, because I feel like we're just dealing with villains now, because by the end we're worried about Russians getting nuclear codes, like, more than that in a minute. I just with Nakano, with Mrs. Nakano and stuff, I feel like they could have ended with her like, I don't know what to do, right? Yeah, that would have made sense.
That feelings for Jim.
Yeah,
you know?
That would feel natural, that she's conflicted because, hey, her husband's dead, but she's with this new guy.
Because she was out on the relationship anyways, but she didn't want him to die, and that's still my son's father, and what are we going to do? And, like, this is the no-win scenario, and her leaving just out of, like, frustration versus her being like, you're smiling? My husband's dead.
But again, it's not like he comes out and says, hey, we can be together now because your husband's gone. He comes out and smiles because, hey, I'm innocent and there's proof that I'm innocent, so I'm not going to jail. That's amazing. It is amazing.
It's almost like she wanted him to go to jail and she doesn't have to deal with it no more. She's like, "Oh, you're innocent? Ah, crap."
Just like,
yeah.
I think he's perfectly valid for feeling relieved that, one, there's proof that he's innocent, and even the fact that he wasn't sure if he'd done it because of the mind, altering tech and whatnot from Matar. Like, he's allowed to feel relieved. So that set me off on the wrong foot, and then the fact that it seems like we're just immediately throwing this relationship away just exposes it for how much of a quick, cheap ploy it was in the first place. Like, at least if this was going to be a new status quo where they're going to be a couple and it's going to be a running thing throughout the book, and maybe even in tech as well, if, it gets referenced there, then hey, great. And besides, Gordon kind of messed up with his last son. Maybe if he raises this new son, he can have a chance of redemption. Maybe this one won't be a serial killer.
He's collecting kids like Bruce would.
Maybe that's why she's wanting to break it off and like use an excuse, because she's like, hey, the last son you raised turned out to be a serial killer. I don't know if I want you influencing anyone.
Yeah, but hey, I raised my daughter right. She's a computer specialist. She's great. And what is Barbara's job right now? Like, not outside of being Batgirl and Oracle, right? Is she still doing stuff out in the public?
I don't think so.
Does she still have her companies? Because she runs a tech company. I did pretty good.
She did at one point. I don't know, maybe she's technically still got that going, but I don't think she actively has to do anything with it. And to be fair, I'm sure Bruce could just pay her for being Oracle, if she needs a living. But to the public, right? I'm just saying that Jim could hold up to the site and be like, hey, I raised a perfectly good daughter. I can't help it. He was, nature versus nurture. Right? Keep in mind, he knows that she's Batgirl, so it's almost like he could say, hey, I raised Bat. Well, I can't say that. That's a secret. Barbara's doing fine.
Hey, I'm 50-50. I got a hero and a villain, all right?
But that's not bad odds.
Everything that we're doing here is far more interesting than what we got, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and then there's a big chunk of the issue, which is just Batman fighting his way through the tower to get to Riddler. And there's, Riddler's like talking and taunting to him. It's actually just like the Batman video games, the Arkham games, with Riddler like over the tannoy, just sort of mouthing off at him.
That was by design. Then so when he shows up to the Enigma building, right, it has the glowing green question mark out of the lights, right? Is that something reminiscent of the game?
I mean, there's green question marks all over the place for the Riddler side stuff for sure. But I definitely thought of the games where this Riddler was taunting him and like saying more riddles and saying, it was particularly the parts where he's like, oh, you got that one? Well, that was an easy one. That is exactly a line of dialogue from those games where you'll solve one of these puzzles and Riddler will get over the comms and be like, that was an easy one, Batman. There's still 155 to go. You'll never get them all. But as you keep getting more, as you're getting like near like the last 10, he starts getting kind of nervous, like, oh, how are you doing this? This is not possible. You're solving too many of these. And then eventually, but I mean, fun. So here's the weird thing, right? So this Leonid guy, who's working with Riddler, right, and is apparently they're representing the Court of Owls. Batman, via some of the riddles or whatever, figures out that he is actually Russian, and that he's from the Court of Owls, but he also is a Russian agent. So are the Court of Owls working for Russia? Is that what we're saying here?
The way that Zdarsky made it sound is that this was a Russian asset that took over the Court of Owls.
So the Court of Owls are working for Russia.
And they don't, but and the way that we figured this out through Batman is that Leonid's a Russian name, so you can't have a Russian name, and not be Russian.
This feels so like out of left field. What is this?
Well, so I get what Zdarsky's doing because he's taking something from politics and what's going on here in the United States, right? And Russian assets and all this type of stuff, and Russia's manipulating things behind through money and whatever.
I mean, I can get that. That's fine. But it just from a storytelling perspective, like you've not even mentioned Russia once, I don't think, in this arc.
Not once. This is like a sledgehammer where he just went, okay, here it is, and we're gonna, by the time we get to the reveal of who not Cody Rhodes is, not
Commander Star. I remembered.
Commander Star, not Homelander. it is, again, subtle as a sledgehammer here, you know?
Yeah, there's a whole thing as well where so Batman's getting maybe overwhelmed a little bit by some of these owls dudes, the Court Owls soldiers. And I say Court Owls soldiers, they've got the mask on. They're otherwise just wearing regular outfits though.
They're not Talons.
No.
Which again, I'm wondering if there's going to be a reveal this is not the actual court or whatever, you know. It was imposters or something, you know.
I mean, that would make more sense than they're just working for the Russian government now.
Yeah, because the thing with the Court of Owls, the what makes them work is the mystery of it. And to make them Russian assets gets completely
the mystique is just gone at that point.
Gone. And God, and they're definitely a less is more type thing with the court. So yeah, the whole, like, you could do it like, the court's been infiltrated, he's a rogue agent, whatever, and he happens to be Russian. But the whole thing Batman figures out because his name's Leonid, and that's a Russian name, so he must be a Russian asset. And just all that, it's incredibly stupid.
Gordon ends up saving his ass. He shows up and hits a bad guy with a fire extinguisher. And then from here, it's kind of weird. He kind of, like, Batman's like, hey, I need to go after this Leonid because he has, he's basically, because of Enigma's computer tech, he's had access to all of the government systems. He's got nuclear launch codes. And I'm like, wait, we're talking about nuclear launch codes now? What? But whatever, right? So, and Gordon's like, I'll stay here and go after, Riddler and Mad Hatter and whatnot. And Batman's like, are you armed? And he's like, no, I'm just, I just came straight here. And Batman takes off his utility belt and hands it to Gordon and says, I've got a spare in the car. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but is Gordon used to using smoke bombs and batarangs? Because this felt like so fan service to me. He's like, oh, isn't it cool that Gordon's wearing the bat belt and he starts throwing smoke bombs and batarangs?
So also, depending on how the rope gun works, like if it's shaped like an actual gun, I want the cop in him to take over, and he's just shooting the rope apparatus at the villains. I think that would be so funny. Because does Gordon know how to throw a batarang? We don't know.
Apparently, he does it very effectively at one point.
Yeah. Oh God.
Because he throws one. He does the thing where he throws it and it lands like right next to the person's head. Now, whether or not, or he throws one at Riddler's leg. Actually, that's the other one he throws. Whether or not that's like, I don't know, like beginner's luck or what. It felt like such a weird thing. Like, I'm not saying that there's no scenario in which Batman handing him his belt and saying, hey, there's some useful stuff in there. But I feel like all the stuff that's in there for someone who's not like a martial artist would be like, okay, there's some use for some of these things maybe to a regular person, but it felt strange like that visual of him walking in with the belt on it. It felt like Zdarsky had like a fan fiction-y thing he wanted to do, and here we are.
It's the artist in him, because that image of Gordon walking through wearing the utility belt is pretty cool. That's a cool image. Just give me the story of it, though. The story doesn't add up here. It's not as cool as the image.
They're very wrong. Him borrowing the belt and trying to use some of the gadgets is better than a big Robo Bunny suit that he had.
That's for sure.
That was something
he calls rookie.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Leonard's on the way to the airport. Batman has figured out that he's got nuclear codes and it could start World War III. And then the reveal at the end is that Commander Star is actually KG Beast under the hood. And
those riddles that Riddler gave him were not good. How he figures out this KG Beast, So where he says, it's what I'm up against. He goes, not in pounds, but I measure weight. I won Beauty's love, which started as hate. And it's just like, oh, the Beast won Beauty's love. And for the first part, he's talking about kilograms.
Which you could shorten to kg.
Yeah. Oh, kg and B. Oh, it's KG Beast. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Russian asset parading as a American hero. I get it. It's there. It's whatever. But
I honestly, the moment where he's like saying we have to go after Leonid, and you turn the page and it says he has access to this, that, you turn the page and it says nuclear weapons, and I'm like, wait, how did this arc about like a hostile takeover of Wayne Enterprises and a murder mystery turn into the Russians have got nuclear bombs from America. How did it turn into that? This is absolutely... Like, I started this arc kind of... The first 2 issues of this arc, I was like, this is actually alright. I'm kind of liking a lot of what they're doing here. Mm-hmm. And then last issue I didn't really like, and then this one it was like, see the shark? We're not just going to jump the shark. We're going to do a backflip over the shark.
And then the shark's going to do a backflip over us.
And then blow up.
Uh-huh.
Like, what is this? Like, this just went to these extremely wild places, and I don't, and maybe I'm forgetting little subtle teases or something.
No.
But I felt that all this just came out of nowhere to me.
Like we had gotten the vibe that Commander Star is somebody that's had training and whatever.
Yeah.
And so the reveal of KGB's like, that's fine.
No, I mean, yeah,
but
like
the whole Russian codes and World War III and like.
Yeah, I'm not talking about KG Beast. Like the riddle's a bit stupid, but the fact that it turns out to be KG Beast is completely fine. That's not that weird.
Yeah.
It's what the stakes are supposed to be now. Mm-hmm. Which now it's no, Russia's going to start World War III. Batman has to stop it. How did we get to that? Because it wasn't that.
We still have
it wasn't that at the start of this issue, but somehow at the end of this issue, that's what it was.
I'm far more concerned about the brother in all of this, too, because there's that lingering thread.
Yeah, he wasn't mentioned. We're not even dealing with him this issue.
No, they do kind of mention it towards the end here, because the lady that's talking to him, the one that was helping Riddler, says, I've been.
Specifically
working with them.
Specifically the woman who is on the Wayne board. She works at Wayne Enterprises. That's an important detail. She's not just working with Riddler. Makes it sound like she's like a villain henchman or something.
No, she's on the board, and she says, I helped him find your brother. So there's that little lingering thread, too, in addition to Russia and World War III and the codes.
Okay, there's a reference to it, but it's not part of the story in this issue. It's just...
No, but again, that's like... he wouldn't have brought it up if there's not if it's still an important thing.
Well, I'm not saying they're not going to get back to it. I'm saying that there's so much crazy shit in this issue, and that's not even a factor in it. That's the point I'm making. I'm not saying that they're not going to go back to it. Of course they're going to go back to it.
No, but also all that crazy shit. Again, I want to know what's more with the brother. Like where are we going with this?
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what the brother is. I'm going to read it. I'm going to find out. I'm going to complain. This arc somehow turned into absolute shit. I'll give it this. At the very least, compared to all the failsafe stuff and all that Zura and R stuff that I hated, at the very least, this is wild and I can't predict it anymore. So that's something for talking value's sake. All right.
I can't predict it. Put that quote on the trade.
I'll make one prediction. I've got a funny feeling that World War III won't start. Somehow Batman's going to stop that. I've got a funny feeling that'll happen.
Yeah, he's definitely going to whoop KG Beast, and we'll be there.
Oh God! The guy's already at the plane though. Is Batman going to have to jump out of the plane at the last second, and we'll get a whole plane thing next issue? Possibly, I don't know. Anyway, there's the issue.
Dumb.
What are you rating Batman?
I'm gonna give this a 5.
I think I came into this thinking 5, but I kind of I got mad there, so I'm going to say 4. I'm going down a whole point. Wait, what is this? What even is this anymore? All right, Batgirl issue 3. Tate Brombal writing with Takeshi Miyazawa on the art. This is a better Bat book, a Bat book of a better caliber, one might say. So. Shiva and Cass are on the train that they ran to at the end of last issue, and we spend pretty much this entire issue on the train. In fact, it starts with Cass looking at a photograph of the Bat family, which she is reminiscent of in her head. And much like past issues, a big highlight for me in this issue was her narration as she is sort of processing things. And the big part here is that she's sort of saying, hey, this is what Leader Shiva is. She's not a mother. She's cruel. She provokes. She will pretend empathy. She will abuse wounds that you've already got. Every touch is a manipulation. All this stuff. And then throughout the issue, she's sort of looking for those signs and sort of catches some of them, but there's also some moments where it's like, oh, that actually looks, she cared about someone there. How do I process this? And she's kind of like sort of fighting with herself. So there's more of Shiva trying to like talk to her and like say, hey, this is important, daughter. Forget your Bat family. This is what matters. And Cass is like, no, this is your fault. I'm out here because of you. So yeah, it's a big confrontation issue more than anything.
Yeah, well, and I just like the train setting of it all too, because the further Cass goes down the train, it seems like the more understanding of Shiva she gets. So I kind of like that little aspect. And just it's doing that thing where it is rightfully making me understand how Shiva isn't exactly this evil villain that we've always seen, right? Like there is some complexity and nuance to her, because when you get introduced to the Order of Shiva and what that represents, and it's informed by actions that Shiva's taken through Cass and through her career as a deadly assassin, it definitely makes me look at her in a different light. She's not just the destroyer.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm taking it all at face value quite yet. I'm still kind of wary of what is actually going on at the Order of Shiva. It seems very nice, and like she's helping out people who are allies. But I suspect, I don't know, I mean, Cass is obviously very wary of everything. She does ultimately, because they get into the next train car, because Cass starts fighting with Shiva and kicks her into the next train car, and there's all these people who look, helpless, they look like they're scared or whatever. And like Cass is sort of looking around. I love the little yellow boxes that go around some of the faces as Cass, and it sort of ties with some of the narration boxes where it's like threat, injured, scared of me. She's sort of processing, but she immediately puts on her mask. She's like, wait a minute, mask, identity, and puts the mask back on, which is great, because it means for the rest of the issue we're back to the mask Cassandra Cain, where we get kind of those ambiguous at times reactions from her, which part of what makes, I think, Cassandra Cain books so interesting, is that sometimes you get just like only the slimmest amount of like expression from the art, because you can have her kind of like, furrow her brow or whatever, but beyond
her
that,
eyes do a lot of the storytelling.
Yeah, it's very disguised otherwise, though. So it's almost like a challenge to see how well the artist can like pull off the simplistic way of her expressions.
A bit of a spoiler is the artist is fantastically.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. The art's been great throughout this book, and this arguably could be seen as the best yet. So there's a lot of her talking to this guy who works for the Order of Shiva, who seems to trust Shiva. Explains to her that everyone in the Order is either a destroyer or a restorer, depending on what path they choose. He is a restorer. He's a healer. He's going to patch Cass up and give her some medicine. And Cass, by the end of this conversation, does seem to sort of listen and sort of realize that this guy isn't a threat. And he's even noticing that Shiva is like attending to other people in the train, and is like, but doesn't know how to take it in. It's like, I think her expression there as she sees that is very much of apprehension. As much as you can read that panel.
Yeah. Well, because this is not the Shiva that she knows, right? Like, so her seeing her tend to these people, it definitely would be a bit of like, well, what's the play here? Because she's always thinking that Shiva's, like you said earlier, they point out, that's always a manipulation of a wound or of a limb or of something, right? That she's using this as a means to an end. So I do like that Cass is still a bit suspicious.
And I think this whole Order of Shiva thing could be a means to an end, to be honest. I think this is...
I mean, I think so too, but just the idea of what Shiva is, right? And in Hindu mythology, right? It's a creator, but also from that, or destroyer, but also from destruction can come creation, right? Because things are cyclical. So just the idea, like, because the healer guy, the restorer, his name's Jayesh, and Cass thinks that she recognizes him from before, but she's like, well, no, he died from the Unburied, and that was his brother, and his brother was a destroyer, right? He was one of the fighters that fights at behalf of Shiva, while he's a person that does the opposite. So this whole idea of the balance between the two, and I feel like that's something that also that Shiva's been trying to preach to Cassandra, that you can't I'll always be your mother, right? You might be this bat, and you honor that side of the family, but you're always going to have this other half. So you have to find that balance. And I feel like that this issue only drives that theme more.
Yeah. But of course, there's more to this here. The issue gets kind of exciting when she sees someone coming from a train car further down, looking for the bathroom of all things.
And again, the art here, he looks like there's like this sheepishness to the body, to the body language. It's very funny.
Yeah, and there's a very sort of thin panel, a close-up of Cassandra's eyes in the mask, with just one caption saying "threat," and it's just like it's just like her eyes have locked in like a Terminator of like, who is this? He is a danger, and it's like, yeah, she's like, League of Shadows, watch out, and she kicks this guy into the next train car and sees more League of Shadows, and then we get a glorious pair of 2-page spreads where it's basically just one of those sequential fights where there's no panel breaks, it's all presented as one image, but it's like Cass fighting her way through a train full of League of Shadows over 2 pages with her mother like right behind.
Trying to stop her, right? Like all of Shiva's body language is like protective almost, right? Like she's, it's very apprehensive.
Yeah. But it's like Cass is kind of reassuring herself like what she is as she's doing this. She's like, hey, this is the betrayal I was waiting for. The League of Shadows is here. Shiva only does this and that, but I'm a bat. And she then sort of goes through and says, I am the will of Barbara, I am the heart of Stephanie, I am the, and she goes through all the members until obviously ending on Bruce. The glorious 2 pages, and then the page afterwards is also a single full page spread of her jump kicking a League of Assassins, or Shadows, I should say, member, from one train car to the next. So the page is like the space in between the 2 train cars, and then like flying between the 2 entrances. Just gorgeous. Those 3 pages are just phenomenal.
And the coloring here, right, to play with the shadows, because it's the full-on full moon, and just so the blues hit with the blacks and the grays. And yeah, it looks great.
Yeah. Gorgeous stuff. I will say, the last 2 pages, is there a different colorist on the last 2 pages?
It feels like it. Let me go back to the title page.
Because as soon as you go to that second last page, they are still great, and the line work still looks the same, and it's not bad. It just looks a little bit different coloring-wise to the rest of the issue. The colors are a bit more vivid and less kind of, I guess, muted, I would say.
No, I feel like it was a conscious effort because it's the same.
Really?
It's Mike Spicer.
That's fair enough. It looks notably different on that last 2 pages.
Yeah.
And basically she's got to the head of the train, and the reveal here is that we have what's her name? Nissa Al Ghul. She's back from the dead. The other Al Ghul, she's there with the League of Shadows. And this is like a little team that Shiva's put together. These are the allies. These are the resistance against the Unburied, and whatever else. So yeah, it's like Cass is confused and says these threats are supposed to be allies, and one of them, probably Nissa, the final bubble, is care to take a seat next to Mummy. And I love that panel because it's just like this half view of Cassie's face in the mask, just kind of scowling and being like, what is this? Like, who am I trusting here? Like, what has my mother got me into with this allegiance? So, all very, very fishy. But this was a great issue. It had more of the mother-daughter kind of back and forth, and Cass, like, sort of like resisting all the temptations that Shiva offers. It kind of murkied it up by showing that Shiva might have done something good with her power, because these people idolize her and she uses that in some way. Although, when she said that, though, she said, like, an ideal is a more powerful leader than a person. And I thought, that sounds a lot like Batman.
Yeah.
When you phrase it like that, it sounds very Batman-y.
That's what Bruce tells in Batman Begins. That's what he tells Alfred, right?
Yeah.
He's become an idea. You know, it's hard to kill an idea.
Yeah, I'm curious if Cass has a moment of reflection where she realizes that she believes in an idea, and that's what she believes in with bats. But Yeah, and then the ending's interesting, but for me, the pinnacle of this issue is the fight. Right, when Cass goes into fight mode, and we get those like 3 glorious pages, 5 pages technically, because it's two full page spreads, and then a single page spread. But that fight sequence is gorgeous, and yeah, like maybe the best fight sequence that we've had in this book so far, and that's saying something because issue 1 had a lot of great stuff in that vein as well. So
yeah, for sure.
I loved how focused it was. I love that it's all set in this train, and it has like a sense of progression. You can kind of neatly break it into like 3 parts based on different train cars and what is happening in the story. So it's structured very neatly and feels really easy to follow. And then as we praise the art, they're doing all the cast expressions, the great fight scenes. Yeah, it's a winner. I have very little to critique. I love Cass getting fleshed out like this. I love that she has a book again. It really made me want to go back and read the full original Cassandra Cain Batgirl run.
Because they mentioned that that Shiva, because I've never read that stuff, that she resurrected Cassandra. Yeah. And so that was another thing that showed that, that there is a restorer aspect to her. She's not just the destroyer. And it said, there's an editor's note, Batgirl 25. So that was something that made me curious about that original arc, or that original series anyways.
Yeah, I read some of it once upon a time, but I never got around to it. I think it's because they were putting out thick trades, but they stopped. They never finished the whole run and those thick trades. But obviously digitally it's all available, so I really should go back and do the full run. It was a very easy read from what I read.
I'll have to look into it. Now here's the thing with the two. Is the League of Shadows, League of Assassins two different? Are they being interchangeable?
I don't think
they've popped up so many times now. I'm getting them confused.
I don't think they're interchangeable because remember that whole Lazarus Island stuff with Robin and all that. There was League of Assassins, League of Shadows, and then there was like the super secret third one, right?
Yes.
So I think they are two separate things. Seemingly, based on Nyssa being here, I would assume right now that Nyssa is in charge of the League of Shadows.
Right, because I believe that's Angelbreaker who was introduced in that Lazarus stuff, seated next to her on the left.
I'll take your word for it because I do not remember.
Yeah, and I believe that was someone that was loyal to Talia, so that just mucks things up. So yeah, definitely. When I say mucks things up, not in a bad way, but it definitely has got me going like, oh, what is going on here? What are the dynamics here? Because if I remember Nyssa right, is that she's very anti-Roz. Right, she's not like Talia, where Talia falls in line. So
I'll be honest, I'm thinking I can't remember reading a story about Nyssa ever. I mean, I probably have. She's probably popped up, but I do not remember a Nyssa story.
She was in that era when I first started reading comics. So Rucka, I think, was writing a book that I remember reading Nyssa in. So
because despite having read DC Comics for like a decade by that point, when the character popped up in Arrow, I went, Nyssa? Who's this? What is this nonsense? But I know she's a real character, but I don't think I've ever read a Nyssa story. At least I can remember. I'm sure she popped up in something, but I do not remember.
Very curious, and I do love seeing this whole assassin side of the DCU. There's a lot of fun characters to play with here. So whoever that guy is sitting on the right as well, to there, it seems like they're forming some kind of group here, right? At the end, that last panel before Cass's, half face. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff here.
Yeah, no, this has continued to be one of the standouts the last few months. Excited that we have this, and hopefully it's gets at least a few arcs before its demise. That would be.
Yeah, I think it's funny that this generation of writers seems to have a lot of love for Cassandra Cain. Because she keeps popping up in different things.
That's not funny. That makes complete sense. Think about the age of the writers and when they grew up reading comics. It makes complete sense.
Well, when I say funny, I don't mean funny, haha. It's just it's very curious in that we got her. We had that the Spirit World book that she was co-starring in. She's in Birds of Prey. She has this. She pops up. All the other Bat books. So. But yeah, it's good to have her as she's getting more fleshed out, each time, and that's good.
Yeah. All right, what are you giving Batgirl issue 3?
I'm giving this a 9.
I find it hard to argue with that, honestly. 9 for me as well. That's given 2 9s. I've given 2 9s and a 4 so far. Talk about Whiplash. All right, Birds of Prey issue 17, Legacy number 215. Kelly Thompson writing with Sami Basri on the art. So this issue is the end of the current arc, which was Cass was infiltrating this place, the evil lab, and they'd kidnapped a bunch of Amazons as well as other superpowered women, and were trying to use them and feed off of them to make their own serums and whatnot, and basically create these big monsters. Cliffhanger from last issue is the birds went in to get Cass and the others out, but Cass had been turned into a sort of Hulk-raged monster, and that's where this issue picks up. I feel like it's going to be a short discussion because there's not actually a lot to say here, which is not a critique. It's just that a lot of it is the fighting. It's the combat between them. The art does
a lot of the storytelling here.
Yeah. You know, it's Canary doing her cry. It's Barda saying, "I don't want to hurt you, little bat, but I will," or not so little bat, as the case may be. Yes. It's Onks and the other guest character, like, you know, rescuing the other ladies out of the various things. What I will say though is I really liked the POV shots we got from Cass, where she's looking at Barda and they're all kind of red and demonic. And the moment when Barda is able to like sort of talk her out of it and sort of like bring her back down, we get that POV shot again, but it gradually with each panel gets more normal and the lettering becomes readable. Because initially what happens is you'll get like a panel of Cass and you'll get the speech bubble from Barda coming in off panel saying whatever she's saying, and then you'll get the POV panel. And you'll basically, the speech bubble in the POV panel, well, actually, if you look really closely, it's just the same text we got in the previous panel, but that's because it's so hard to read, because it's all wavy and distorted, that it's like, hey, you don't have to read it again. This is just to show that it's, like, that Cass isn't quite hearing her, that it's you know, it's obstructed. So, a really nice touch in the art there, particularly the scene where it kind of comes back and, becomes normal over the course of a few panels. Much like Batgirl as well, as a 2-page layout with a fight with like Black Canary moving around in different positions, which is fun. So, you know, good stuff.
And the stuff with Oracle, right, is like she's there with Sin, and they're trying to figure out how they can help, right? Because it looks like the birds are in a little bit over their head, and Sin has an idea and pitches it to Babs. And then we don't, you know, that doesn't come back until the last part, where she ends up getting, what's her name? Is it Sella?
Yeah,
from the last arc.
From the last arc, yeah, the one who was in the various pocket dimensions. Yeah,
so brings her in with Megara. No. Yeah, that's what that is, right?
Well, yeah, but she didn't bring Megara. Megara's just a partisan now, but yeah.
Right. But she uses that power to kind of help come in and save the day. Not before the guy that runs it, the kind of hippy-dippy dude, escapes into the tunnels underneath where they were holding Cass. So it just, fun way to get everybody involved here by the end.
Yeah, basically the hippie guy makes the others like take some of the serum, so they jump out as big Hulk monsters, and that's when Sin like uses the Megara powers to take them down, and the hippie guy seemingly has gotten away, although you do get one like quick panel of him at one point. I'm trying to find the panel just so I can.
It's towards the back. It's the second to last page. Third to last page.
Yeah.
So
the
for
bottom.
Zane.
Yeah.
And he's all, delirious, hulked out and running in the tunnels.
Yeah, he's in a sewer or something at this point.
Yeah.
So I mean, the ending's nice because they take the prisoners back to Themyscira, and it's basically just patching up the tension from the first arc, where now the birds are welcome on Themyscira, the relations with the Amazons are good, and that's all neat and nice, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I love the way that Basri draws the Amazons here at the end, because we had just had the other Amazons as these big hulking monsters, right? But then when we get back to Themyscira, they're big and hulking, but in a way where they're not monstrous, right? So it just shows kind of the, you know, the I don't want to say the way that Canary views the Amazons, right? But they're almost larger than life here, So when they accept her kind of apology and whatever, it feels like it means something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a fine ending to the arc, but it is mostly action, so there's maybe a bit less story-wise to talk about. But there's some nice moments between them. Barda breaking through to Cass, it's just enough so that Cass can sort of indicate where the control chip is or whatever in her neck, so that they can cut it out. Is a nice moment. But the art is really solid throughout, and it really helped tell the story. No, I mean, Basri's not my favorite by any means, because Basri's, these faces can be a bit hit and miss depending on the moment. But I think it handles all the main things that this issue is trying to do, and some of the techniques it uses to sort of tell the story between Cass and the others when she's in the monster form is particularly good. So, no, nice. Yeah, and plus it's this idea that this Celia character can come back and be a part of the run again. When I'm not surprised she came back. I think I'm maybe surprised that she came back this quickly.
So soon.
Yeah, because this was only like maybe 4 or 5 issues later. But yeah, no complaints. So, all right, we giving Birds of Prey?
I'm gonna say a 8.
Yeah, I'd say flat 8. I think it would need some extra sort of meat or sort of like really big defining character beats or something to sort of get it a bit further up. But it's a really solid end of a arc issue to a fairly solid arc. And I'm excited to see what they do next. So very cool. All right. JSA issue 3, Jeff Lemire writing with Diego Olortegui on the art. So, was a little critical issue 2 for feeling like it didn't really move things forward, because it kind of we questioned, like, could they have restructured issue 1 and 2 to be in an order that made a bit more sense from like a narrative structure point of view. So I think this issue gets away from that because it is moving things forward and it is sort of the next parts of everything. And there's a lot of things in here I like. I will say, though, I do think that it's still maybe buckling a little bit under the weight of just how many groups of characters are in the story.
Yeah.
I was finding myself thinking that the flow was suffering. Like, I think some more focused issues where it just focuses on one group or 2 groups maybe at most. Because there's a point here where it's like, okay, so here's Hawkman and he's been captured. He wasn't killed, but he was captured by these demon dudes. And then... a few pages later, okay, here's Jade and Sand, and that's labeled Infinity Inc. Then a few pages later, here's other characters. I mean, there's no title on them, but it's Midnight and Obsidian and an unconscious Jakeem. And then back to Hawkman for a bit, and then we go to the characters who were in the Tower of Fate, which it says the Mystery Men at the top of that page, and that's this whole group of characters that we're dealing with. And then we go to the people on the roof of the Tower of Fate, which is the other half of that group with Hawk Girl and Alan talking on the roof. Like, there's just so many characters that we're jumping around from that it feels like by the time we've done one round of like getting to like to have one scene with each group, we're already like 2/3 out of the issue, and there's not enough time to do enough with any of them.
I will say when it is focused, Lemire does really, really well, because there's some aspects here, like the stuff with Carter dealing with the demons, and them saying like he's been bound by essentially like these muscles and tendons of an angel, and that this is the last time, this is his last reincarnation, and it really just set the stakes and how he's going to get out from this and what it means, like if this is his last life. And what that means for his legacy and all this other. I feel like it really works there. And then also when we get the Fate and Wildcat stuff, when Fate's having these doubts about him not being able to do this, and he's their only hope, and Wildcat tells him, he's like, yeah, all I can do is throw a good left hook, right? But that doesn't stop me. You wear that mantle as good as Kent did, so let's get out there, let's save the day. What you're capable. I think that when it is focused on those like moments, it does really good things. It's just bouncing around from character to character to group. It just feels like they're these smaller moments, right? and that they don't add up to much.
Yeah, I think you get away with this a little bit as a middle issue, but I think the problem is that all of the issues have been like this so far. It really needs some more focused issues that just hone in a couple of characters and tell a really pivotal part of the story where it doesn't have to jump around. Because I like most of the scenes on their own. Like, I really like the Jade and Sand, where Jade's like feeling the pressure of being leader with half the team missing, and what do we do? And Sand's like both try to like give her a pep talk, but also kind of initiate the romance between them and say, hey, we have these feelings, I hope you feel them too. And she's like, I do, but there's a lot going on. And he basically just says, hey, look, I'll be for you here to help make you a better leader, and hopefully it becomes something else. And if not, then let's not put pressure on it. But it's a sweet enough scene that works. Young Dr. Midnight basically looking at the Jakim's like medical stuff and scans and whatnot and saying, what's causing this? There's no medical reason why it should be like this. And then she clearly sees something and realizes something, which maybe proves what it actually is, and runs to tell people, but obsidian, but it's not actually obsidian. It's sorrow,
Johnny
presumably. Because he even there's a brief reference to it where he says, "Oh, I'll show you my true face," which won't make much sense to her, or maybe it does, depending on what she saw in the medical stuff. But we know what that means because we know it's sorrow. I mean, it's like, I think the problem with the jumping around so many characters like this and there not been enough focus on one story enough to get like a really meaty part out of it is that it does make it harder to remember stuff when the next issue rolls round. Because part of what helps you remember like a previous issue of a comic is like because there was a good progression in something, and I feel like because you're jumping around so much, you're losing that a little bit. But it's not. But I like all the individual things. It just feels like it needs to find its footing a little bit, and it's not quite done that yet. But yeah, so Hawkman's in hell. They take him to see Master Wotan. He sees Surtur all chained up at one point as well.
That was pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, I thought it was something.
No. Just it was interesting to see Surtur, right? To see all these different, like, because Surtur is a Norse mythological being, right? And you wouldn't associate him with 2L's hell, like they are here. So I feel like Lemire's got something up his sleeve there.
Yeah, and then the ending is that Kid Eternity pops out from behind a shadow and says, "Hey, I'm going to help you get out of here, Hawkman." So, yeah, that's wild. I guess the other notable scene is the scene with Kendra, the hot girl, talking to Green Lantern Alan Scott, and basically saying she has to go look for him, even though there's not a romantic link between her and this Hawkman, because this Hawkman already found Shiara at some point.
Yep.
So things are out of balance, and like that's fine. Like things can change, but there's still kind of a bond, maybe like a brother sisterly bond. I have to go and try and find him. So it's like, okay, all of it's solid enough stuff, but just not exceptional because it's held back a little bit by how the story's being told. Like, I think maybe a smaller cast, or maybe just focusing on one element of the story in one issue. Like, maybe do all of the Hawkman and like Tower of Fate character stuff in one issue. Do all of the stuff with Jade and present day characters in the city in one issue, and have maybe just a little tease of what the other parts are. And then maybe by now we'd have a full picture of everything. But because it's been doing all this jumping around for each issue, it's a little bit less satisfying, I'll say, as a single issue.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's not adding up to the sum of its parts, right? Because all the parts we like, it just feels like they're not organized as well as they could be.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. And Olortegui's art is very, decent house style, is kind of how I'd describe it.
It has flashes of I'm drawing a blank now. Howard Porter sometimes. So it feels like that era of JSA or Flash. Like there's a smile that Jenny gives when she's talking to Stan, that Jade, that I feel is just like the expression is perfectly put there, but the action stuff, it's pretty basic, but I feel like the expressions it really goes in on, which helps in an issue like this, because again, all of the stuff with Khalid when he's not wearing the helm, with Wildcat, and then even with with Kendra and Alan, all that stuff I think looks really good, and it's just people talking, so I feel like that's where Olortegui is doing really well.
Yeah. I guess the other notable thing is that Khalid does get the pep talk from Wildcat and is able to blast the villains out of the Tower of Fate. So that's why I mentioned that. It's the one other thing that really happened, and that about does it, really. So, what are you giving JSA, Matt?
I'm going to give us a straight 7.
Yeah, I think that's about fair. I might go a nudge lower and say 6.5. I don't know if I quite want to say it's outright good, even though I do like most of the things in it. I think it's just isn't quite adding up to a satisfying issue this time. And to an extent last time. Issue 1 fared a bit better, because it had the big obsidian reveal by the end, and it kind of felt like, it felt like it was setting things up and paid it off by the end, whereas that's something that I don't think this issue and the last issue really had. But I really hope it finds its footing, though, because Jeff Lemire sounds like a great fit for JSA, and the hints are there. It just needs to,
try get him on some solid ground, like you said. Get some sturdy footing, and I think this will really, it'll start picking up steam.
Yeah. All right. Shazam, issue 19, Josie Campbell writing with Dan McDaid on the art. Next big chapter in this arc, big issue for Freddy, at the very least, with him kind of basically earning the right to still be I probably won't go by Commander anymore. Captain Junior, although he does poo-poo the idea of that name.
I do love it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, for some reason, so the issue actually starts with Lady Savannah with all the Mr. Mind-looking creatures on Venus with Mary. And later on in the issue, some of the villains say, "Oh, Mary's dead," and I'm like, "Okay, I don't believe you." Like, I'm pretty sure she's not, but she is gone for the rest of the issue. She gets blasted with like a blast of whatever from Mr. Mind. Well, I mean, it's Savannah's body, but I mean, it's worth mentioning at this point she has been completely taken over by Mr. Mind. So, yeah, more Mr. Minds coming to Earth, all the rest of it. Or maybe actually, I think that's a flashback to when they first arrived on Earth. Never mind.
Yes.
So yeah, so all this is going on, and Mr. Mind's basically torturing Freddy in his own head. So that's the green emblem, the lightning bolt, whatever you want to call it. Mr. Mind is abusing Freddy, is telling him what he's going to do. See, you wanted to do this to Billy. You wanted to hurt him. You were jealous of him because he always upstages you, yada, yada, yada. And that goes on throughout the issue. We come back to that a little bit as well. Meanwhile, Billy has a really nice heart-to-heart with Bo, the girl from next door that he likes. And there's a funny through line to this scene where he keeps accidentally revealing more secrets to her, so she already knows that he's Shazam, right? That's kind of something that was established last issue. But he just kind of happens to mention that Freddy is the commander. And after he's finished his little speech, he's like, "I'm pretty sure you just outed your brother as commander." And he's like, "Oh, shit." And then a little bit later on, he's like, "Hey, by the way, I like you. I'm into you, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "I know. You just said a minute ago that you tend to hurt the ones you love, so I should get away. You included me in that list, so I had a sneaking suspicion." So I just kind of, he keeps revealing things by accident, and it was kind of funny.
It's very spot on for an awkward teen.
Yes.
Because his mouth just gets the better of him, and it all felt, very true to life. And, Josie Campbell showing that skill. That's why we like the stuff with Mary in the Mary series, because everything felt like naturalistic in the dialogue. So yeah, love seeing all that here.
And I do a nice thing here where he puts his hand on hers, and then she takes her hand over and puts it on his. They kind of like give it back in a way. So really sweet scene. Really makes you care about these two as a pair of love interests, which is why the issue rips your heart out at the end with the reveal that it gets to.
Which we'll get there.
Yeah.
I have some info about that.
Info, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So yeah, Billy goes to confront Freddy, but not as the captain, because the captain's still recharging. So he just tries to confront Freddy, full superpowered as a kid, and gets blasted for his efforts as well. But this is kind of what helps inspire Billy inside sort of he's basically in a void in his mind. And he's basically saying, "Hey, I'll do anything to help Billy. I don't care about having the power still. I'll do whatever. I'll stay here, even just somehow save my brother." And then that's when the big, what's his face? The
Hephaestus.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Appears and says, "Hey, do you mean that, Freddy? And he's like, yeah, who are you? What's going on? He's like, well, we found that I was with the people who found that green meteor when it first landed on Earth, and because of its power, we devised a test. So basically, you've passed the test by proving that you want to like give up everything to save your brother. So because of that, he goes from being the commander to a slightly different, a more heroic looking version of Captain Marvel Jr. And one of the nice little touches here is that when Mr. Mind was taunting him and saying, because Mr. Mind kind of yells here saying, "What? No, you're pushing me out," kind of thing. But earlier on, when he was like taunting him in his head, he mentioned that part of your like jealousy and like the spite you have for others around you is that you you're so like ashamed of your injury and how it holds you back that you don't want to have any kind of like semblance of it in your superhero form. So a nice touch here when he becomes like the good version of a superhero is that he actually has like a brace on his leg to kind of show that he's still not like, he's accepting that as well. He's like, no, he's not hiding that part of him. He's embracing it. It was a really nice touch, actually, is like bringing that up earlier. But you can see the green symbol kind of shatters on his chest as he kind of becomes, the new version of Freddy.
Yeah, and I like that this was all kind of the test of that green lightning bolt, right? Is like, we need to know if you're going to have this kind of power, if you're worthy of it, which is a little bit different than the wizard, right? Picking Billy. So I do like that it changes up that, the fact that Freddy had to earn this. And then the stuff that Mr. Mind's telling him, like, that's why he made him bigger and older than the captain. Right, that was to appeal to Freddy's. That's how he was feeling.
Yeah, has worse like inner like things. Yeah,
all of that, and so here when it embraces. He looks kind of just like an older version of Freddy, right? Kind of like the way that the captain looks like an older version of Freddy or of Billy, and then like you pointed out, the brace, is he's embracing who he really is here.
No pun intended.
And yes, so but yeah, a lot of fun stuff here, and then.
I guess the only question I have, obviously this green thing came from Venus, it came from Mr. Mind's world.
Yes.
But did Mr. Mind just like sense it and connect to it, and that's why he was able to go in there when Freddy took it? Or
yeah, that's what I'm wondering, because we get the reveal too that Mr. Mind, that these worms, right, can separate themselves, right, and that's how they kind of reproduce. And that so the way that he's able to control multiple people, right? So he's controlling Billy and the giant robots and Georgia Savannah.
I guess maybe because I want to say there was one inside it. Maybe it's just a case of there was one inside the lightning bolt that linked up with the others once once someone was using it.
Once it was there, yeah, that makes sense.
I guess that makes some sense. But yeah, there's a 2-page layout of Billy and Freddy both being superheroes. It is interesting. We're in a place now where Freddy and Mary have powers from separate sources than Billy. So they all have their powers, but they're all separate. They're not linked to Billy.
Yeah. And I also love the lengths at which Josie Campbell gives us to name all the powers after different gods to make things work. So, an explainer on here, which then allowed me to do some research to find out who all these gods are. And then we're stretching a little bit, but I do like we have the wisdom of Solomon. Solomon's not traditionally a god, right? It's a figure, and the same here with the cunning of Midas, right? It's kind of equal. So I feel like Campbell really selected these ones to kind of supplement the ones for Shazam. And I'm curious, I got to go back up and look at the ones for Mary, because I wasn't reading, because what book was that in that she had taken over and did the stuff with Mary?
It was that weird like miniseries with the Amazon stuff.
Yeah. The crossover during Lazarus. So I now have to go see what she had done, which goddesses she had picked for Mary. But yeah, just seeing the ones here pop up and what each of them, what they each represent, and how it's a little bit different, but it's still the power of Shazam, which I do love. So just good storytelling throughout.
Yeah. No, nice. So yeah, they hug after they've done all this stuff, but then the sort of the reveal afterwards is that the person in charge of all this stuff, well, it's still Mr. Mind, but the person who's working with Mr. Mind is Bo, the neighbor, and she apparently is the sister of the other Savannah daughter. So
yeah,
this is Bo Savannah or Boisha.
Bosha.
Bosha. There you go. That's how you pronounce that.
Or Busha, because I'm sure it would be like beauty.
Probably,
right?
Yeah.
But we've been pronouncing it as Bo because it's been shortened because she's been, hiding who she is as part of this scheme. And so early on, when she's telling Billy the story about how she killed her mom. Right?
So just to recap that, she mentions that she killed her mom, and when she describes the story, she talks about opening a letter that her mother was getting saying she had cancer. And she specifically says, "Oh, maybe if I told my dad, he's a doctor, he could have maybe done something." I'm like, "Guy, Dr. Savannah, that's it."
Yeah, he's a doctor. Yeah, and so when all that came to be, and then so I look up this like if this is a character, and sure enough, both Georgia Savannah and Busha, whatever we're calling her, were in the pages of 52. Right?
Oh, really?
There's a Savannah family in there, and that's how we get introduced to Subic and that whole story with Isis and Osiris. That's part of the plan. Is that she's supposed to be this she's the beautiful Savannah sibling, and in fact Georgia Savannah goes all the way back to the first Mary Marvel comic in the 40s. Right.
Yeah.
So again, Campbell.
When you said you looked it up, I thought you were going to say, she was a character in the Silver Age. I wasn't expecting you to say 52.
Yeah. No, and in fact, even before 52, Bosha was, kind of just a throwaway in one issue where she's in love with Captain Marvel, right? And it's revealed she's a Savannah, and then stuff happens. But the most recent appearance before this was in 52 as part of the Savannah family. And she has a twin brother, although I don't know how much of that's going to stick. It just seems like right now we're going with Georgia and her. So, yeah, this was a fun little reveal here at the end.
Yeah, so it puts us in this place where she's... It doesn't seem like Mr. Mind's controlling her. If anything, it sounds like she was attracted to Mr. Mind. Like, oh, this is someone who can actually fulfill the things I want to do. And it sounds like she hates her sister because her sister, all that stuff about, I felt guilty for killing my mom. It sounds like her sister blamed her for it, right? Georgia hated her for it. So it sounds like, there's no love lost there between the sisters. So interesting to see. It would be curious if her feelings for Billy are actually real, although at this point it does feel like she's just being manipulative. Based on this issue. But
which hurts, right? Because he was so... Yeah, he was so vulnerable to her, and now she has something else to use against him, right? Like, so yeah, just some fabulous storytelling.
Yeah, the chemistry was real. I'm looking at her top now. Is that the same color Savannah usually wears? Is like a,
it's got that kind of greenish,
or whatever. Yeah.
So, oh boy.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Anyway, so. The end big cliffhanger though is that they basically unleash all the Mr. Minds, all the worms into the world. It seems like they all come out of everyone's phones, right? It's like
via the app.
Yeah, so the app's basically had them all come out of the phones, and at the end it says, like Mr. Minds, I'm inside my new hosts, I'm in all these things. Because I'm inside you too. And it says, Mr. Mind is in you, it's in me, it's in all of us. So, as much as I want to roll my eyes that we're doing everyone's affected by something, because DC Comics, or just comics in general, really, they do that too often. This is at least a little bit funny, because it's the way they're presenting it. There's a sense of humor to this, which I like. So, interestingly, it says Shazam 20 is out next month. But then the Worm Overlord story is going to have a big deal in 21, which makes me... It sounds like 20 might be a fill-in issue then, based on the way it specifies that.
That's what I'm looking up right now.
Yeah.
To see where that comes through.
It's really weird. If the next issue is still part of the next part of the story, it'd be weird to also promote 21 separately at the same time.
No, it's not. So it's Sina Grace doing a story about Billy and John Kent. So it's a special guest writer stops in to tell a very special one-off. Jonathan Kent, son of Superman, is in Philly when something funny happens to the Rock of Eternity.
And
So
I'm sure we noticed
yes.
this when we did the solicits and just forgot about it, and that's
Yep.
okay because
Mhm.
we're never going to remember that. Yeah, it's just a fun issue.
Mhm.
I think this story has really, it's really hit some nice moments.
Yeah.
I think this the end of this Freddy story in particular I've really enjoyed. So this is technically the end of this arc,
Mhm.
although this is one of these things where the end of this arc very much is just like setting up, like because it ends with this big thing where all this Mr. Mind stuff's happening. So it feels like these two arcs are going to be kind of one big arc in a lot of ways. They've just
Mhm.
decided to name it this way for splitting's sake. Whether that's because they want to do two trades or just because it's two 4-issue halves or something, I don't know. But regardless, super cool stuff. Had a fun time. So, if anything, the only real critique I have is that, the art from McDaid, and I've said this in the previous issues, it's just fine. Like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit lacking depth at times. It doesn't. It's like somewhere in that valley between like really good flat art and really good sort of shaded art, where it's not quite hitting good to either. So
Mhm.
I just find it okay, and not particularly worse than that either. I never see anything super bad, but I never see anything that I particularly like either.
Yeah, it doesn't particularly stand out. It's perfectly serviceable.
Yeah. So there you go. All right. What are you giving Shazam 19?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
Yeah, I kind of want to as well. I think it just about gets there between the good scene between Billy and Bo, and then the reveal with Bo, the big Freddy climax. I'm going to give it the 8 as well. I kind of wanted to like dock it a half point or maybe a full point for not loving the art, but I think it does just about get there anyway, just because of how
Yeah.
much fun I had with all the story. So cool. All right. Poison Ivy issue 29. WIllow Wilson writing with Marcio Takara on the art. This is a map book, so you take it away.
Yeah. So where we last left Pam is she disappeared into Marshville, right? She needed to go to Seattle because she needs to talk to this first prophet for the Order of the Green Knight, which is the group that, this kind of cult that's popped up around her and what she had done to save the world from Woodrow and the fungus. And the Marsh, provided a way to Seattle. It allowed her to get from Gotham or the outskirts of Gotham to Seattle, without a lot of travel, without being put on without letting the authorities know and whatnot. And so she starts going into Seattle and she gets out of her Ivy uniform, finds some kind of nondescript hoodie to pull up, and she sees somebody that is representing the Order of the Green Knight, like kind of street preaching and doing trying to stage a protest against climate change and all these other issues that we're all dealing with in the real world. Talking about it might be too late, but let's do what we can. And Pam talks to this guy, and she's like, "Well, what's this person's deal?" And he explains that she's with the Order, and that the first prophet has appeared to them in their dreams, and or that the Green Knight, who is Pam, has appeared to them in their dreams and the first prophet's dreams, and that's how they kind of know who's been chosen. And this is one of the first people that joined up with the first prophet, and no one uses their actual names in case they get caught by authorities. So they he tells her that that's Carla. She can get you to, if you're looking for the first prophet. And we find out that Pam was able to get all of this information because she used some pheromones on this guy. Those pheromones don't work exactly the same on Carla. Yet she feels like, oh, you're her. She instantly recognizes Pam as the Green Knight, as Poison Ivy. And they end up getting, the police roll up on them. They end up taking off. Pam takes the Ivy form and saves them from the police, and that's when they're like, okay, we'll take you to the prophet. So they walk down these train tracks. They go into this underneath a fence to this trailer that's been decorated with plant graffiti. And as they walk up, the first prophet comes out, and if you wouldn't know it, it's the gardener from the Batman arc. Bella Garden, also from Pam's past, right? She was also a student of Woodrue. And Pam is shocked. And, she's like, Bella tells her, you look good. And Pam tells her to shut up. And then they start to talk that, hey, we saw what you did. We saw what you did with Woodrue. The green spoke to us. And we know that you're the one thing that can get us out of this. You always have the idea, but you don't ever have the strategy. And Pam takes exception to this because she's like, well, so your cult is the strategy? Like, what are we doing? And, weirdly enough, we were talking about, ideals in Batgirl. And that's essentially what the gardener gets Pam with, is like, you're an idea to people. We can, you're not just someone of the green. You're also of humankind, and that people trust you because you're like them, and that, people are drawn to you and you can use that. And she kind of, pulls her in for an embrace, and it's like, they see in you what they want in them, and that's a generation that has nothing to lose. And Pam realizes that she's essentially just being used. Like, none of this is with her consent, right? She has no agency in being the Green Knight, because it's just the image of her in that kind of wood and plant armor that she had donned, on herself to take out Woodrue. And she doesn't like being used like that. And as she starts to have this hesitation, the ivy, kind of the green growth, overtakes her, and with her anger, she starts to strangle the gardener with the power of the green. And she apologizes, but realizes, like, you're not my enemy, but this is all just Woodrue still at play, right? Even in his death, he's pitting us against each other. And you're taking things, right? You don't do things without scientific purpose. So it's a little bit weird that you're just kind of relying on this idea of a cult. And there's something in the gardener that Pam still sees. So she kind of leans in to give her a kiss. And I took this as, is she trying to use like the whole pheromone thing? Is she just using this to subdue her? And the gardener pushes away, says, no, I'm not falling for that. I've done this before. And she sends her plant dogs after her that we had seen in the Batman run. And Ivy takes off. She goes to run. She uses her powers to fend off the dogs, and she takes off into the woods. And that, she needed an answer to Marshville. This is what she got, and she wants to forget all of this, right? She doesn't want to be a part of any of this, and that's where we leave. Takara's art is fantastic. Early on, we get a lot of fun crowd shots with all these different people in Seattle, and the use of the green, right? Any time that Pam uses that power, the greens go from being like this muted kind of to a very bright, vivid, just to kind of show you, how different this green is than the green around Seattle, which I think is a lot of fun. And then, just all the stuff with the gardener, it's all very emotion and expression driven. So it's a lot of these panels that are broken up. Like, you have one long one at the top, and then three like vertical that the conversation's going in the middle, and then the opposite. So like the top of this page, you have Pam on the left, and then it's the conversation, and on the bottom panel, it's complimentary of the gardener on the right. So there's just a really good flow to a lot of these. And then again, when Ivy loses that control, right, it's just this expression of anger, like she's lost herself in it, and then the shock right beneath it when she comes to her senses. It's a lot of good storytelling. Really focused as well. There's nothing to do with Croc or Janet from HR or anything that's going on in Gotham, but we just kind of get the person behind this Order the Green Knight is someone from Ivy's past, and in this kind of repeating echo and theme that Wilson's been playing at is Pam can't outrun her past, no matter how hard she tries. These things always come up, and I feel like that at the end, that's why she doesn't know what to do. Right? It's like no matter what she does, these things keep happening. So does she want to keep trying anything at all? So there's almost this hopelessness here at the end. Yeah, really, really good issue. Still one of my favorite series. And I'll give this a 8.5.
All right. Two-Face, issue 2, Christian Ward writing with Fabio Veras on the art. So yeah, this was a pleasant surprise. I mean, not that I wasn't expecting it to be good, but it was very good, issue 1. So we didn't know what to know going in or expect going in, and by the end of that first issue, we set up that Two-Face is actually Harvey in control, but he's pretending to still be Two-Face, and he's holding these courts, like cases for criminals out in this church, and the Two-Face is trapped in a prison inside his mind, which we saw sort of actually be represented at the end of last issue, and that's actually like a subplot in this issue, as we see Two-Face inside the main prison, alongside other like criminals that Harvey's put in there, like bad parts of his past that he doesn't want to think about. So we see like Maroni playing chess with Two-Face and stuff like that. But he's got another case. He's got another court case that he's trying to do. It's the Royal Flush Gang, the married couple that run it.
Yeah. King and Queen.
Yeah, the Queen has accused the king of cheating, and there's photos to prove it, and he claims he's innocent, so he's trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, because in their marriage, it was made that if they get divorced, one of them has to die. And so if it's found that he's at fault, then it's him. So there's some stakes to this divorce case. And it's Harvey. You get the sense that, because the Judge Gavel, right? He's trying to push these proceedings along, but it looks like Harvey's trying to kill time for whatever reason. Yeah. You know, so we're getting a lot of him like, hey, can I get a little bit longer of a recess? Can I do this? And there's a lot of fun like law, like tropes at play here. But yeah, the fact that he's trying to settle a divorce, right? But one of the things that he's holding for is he's sent, and I forgot her name. Where's it at here?
It's the character from the first issue that was
from the first one. Her name's Lake, right? So I sent her to go look for somebody in the Pink Palace and do a club, right? And that's what he's waiting for, is information from her that's going to help with this case.
Yeah, and we get a sense of what the evidence says. It's this photograph that was taken with another woman. Turns out it's the White Rabbit, specifically. It's not just a random woman at that. And that Jenna Hudson's the character who took the photo, who's kind of like the White Rabbit's other half. And it sort of does all this stuff. And then we go inside the main prison, where the colouring completely changes. Everything's really harsh with the greens and the purples and the pinks. And so we get that running throughout the issue, as well as Kentucky Fried Lawyer tries to argue in favor of the wife. I'm only calling him that because that's what Two-Face calls him at one point when his accent slips. Turns out this is actually a character named No Face, though.
False Face.
Sorry, False Face.
No Face was from Plastic Man.
That was from Plastic Man, yeah.
Yes.
Because we get like a Scooby-Doo thing at the end where he takes his face off. It turns out that he was actually using another disguise to dress up as the king from the Royal Flush Gang. The photo was completely doctored. He was never guilty of cheating on her. And this was all an elaborate ruse set up by this new like team of characters who are trying to like take them down. So that's fun.
Yeah, and you get the Ace, who's I feel like an android that comes in to the courtroom, right? And we get a fun little action sequence with Two-Face, disarming Ace, and he's like, don't take it easy on him. He's kind of just a dog saving his master. So again, some fun little character moments here.
Yeah, I like the art on that page where the panel where like first contact's about to be made is like really colorful, even though it's really muted in all the panels around it. It's like the moment of like tension kicks in.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really nice touch. So yeah, but yeah, we get what's so funny is that the White Rabbit girl is actually still sitting next to the disguise in the bed where they took the photo when Lake finds her. But yeah, sure enough, yeah, they get the proof, the evidence. There's even like a fake out moment here where to get away, once he's found out, the bad guy who was dressed up as the lawyer runs away after like a fake Batman like distraction where like smoke bombs go off and you see kind of like the silhouette of Batman, and Two-Face very quickly says, "Damn it, you idiots, it's not real." Where'd he go? And then sure enough, he's disappeared at that point. So the ending, it kind of reveals that there's this group called the Shadow Hand, which is White Rabbit, Falseface, this Jenna Hudson, Doubt, and whoever the mysterious leader of the group is. So that's stuff that it's setting up for the future.
Yeah, I like how it's serialized, and it seems to be a greater story. And we have Lake as kind of his investigator, right, as a lawyer. But there's also these kind of story of the month, right, or case of the month here. So in this one, it was this divorce proceeding between them. I forget what it was in the first one, but it was another type of story, another court case. So yeah, so we're kind of getting Harvey Dent, attorney at law, meets this kind of conspiratorial story in the background, and it's really balanced really well. And yeah, and the fact that the artist, Fabio Veras, kind of mimics that Christian Ward style so well, and when the colors hit, it feels like that the City of Madness book that we got out of Word, the Batman one. So they feel like they're part of the same era, which helps along the way.
Yeah, it's got a sort of darker sort of side of Gotham kind of feel to it. And then you've also got Two-Face inside the mind prison saying that he's going to try and escape, and that he's been building stuff in this mind as well. It's not just Harvey's constructions. So he might have a chance. And because it seems like he kills Maroni, and then immediately there's another Maroni to talk to him. Like he's just standing there again because we're inside the mind. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's all just going to keep popping back in.
Yeah, because there's a warden too, and it's just somebody with an eye on there. So, like, what is that supposed to represent to Harvey?
Yeah,
in the mind prison.
That's a good question. I don't have a quick answer for you, but I'm sure maybe we'll get a bit more of it once we see how Two-Face tries to get past this warden, if the warden is indeed that difficult to get past. I will point out, though, that eye, the color in the eye, the iris, is very multicolored, and it's very similar to that panel where the fight's starting between Two-Face... between Two-Face and... Maroni, yeah. So that colorful panel in the middle, it's the colorful one where the other panels are all very muted in the real world, where Harvey's starting to fight the Ace character, and the colorful one with them fighting. So that color scheme of the sort of the rainbow spectrum being used is very similar in both those panels, which it could just indicate that the warden and this color scheme of this bright, vivid set of colors just represents the mind, when the world on the outside is all very muted and gray and whatever. But it was making me kind of think, because that's like the moment of tension when things spring into action. It does almost make me wonder if like like this idea that the Two-Face in the mind was fighting someone as Harvey was fighting someone in the real world. Is it possible that this warden who has the same colors in her eye, or his eye, is like, I don't know, like his sense of justice, maybe?
Maybe, because what is keeping all of them locked in there, right? Like what part of Harvey is this going to be? And what is it with the eye? Because there's also a lot of iconography throughout of just one eye on Two-Face, right? So like when he has Maroni there, and when he cuts his neck, right, you just see that one eye and it's kind of glowing, right? So there's also just the single kind of eye motif that goes throughout. And yeah, so is it going to be more of that? Is it, like what aspect of Harvey is it keeping him locked away? But yeah, it's just a really fun book. I really like this book.
That's it. I mean, obviously, as much as I compared it to that panel specifically, the entire main prison has a very like colorful, vivid look to it. So I wonder if just the idea here is that eye represents like everything's through the lens of this eye. This is like the world that this eye is viewing. So therefore, everything in this world is this color scheme kind of thing. I don't know. Like, it's interesting though because it's very pretty to look at, if nothing else, and it's a nice contrast from the real world stuff, which, like we said, is a lot more muted, a lot more flat. Whereas the stuff inside the main prison is very colorful and it has a lot more texture. There's a lot more kind of textures, particularly in the backgrounds. They put a lot of that kind of spotted kind of look to it. So, yeah, it was a very good read though. I think this, because obviously the first issue was very solid, but it was very much about the court case on its own, because we didn't introduce this main prison stuff until the very end of the issue. But this issue, because it has that to bounce between, gave it a really interesting pacing that it felt a bit quicker than the first issue. Not that I think this is better than the first issue, necessarily, but I think it does help the pacing quite a bit. And there's a really nice moment as well where it looks like when they're in the main prison, Two-Face and Maroni look up at like a TV that's there, and they can see what's happening in the real world. It looks like the case that's happening with the Royal Flush couple is happening, and you see the judge there.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting that there's kind of a window out to the real world effectively with that TV. Interesting. So no, I'm curious to see how he keeps blending the main prison stuff with the real world, and maybe this idea that when Two-Face is able to escape, it's because Harvey's at a moment of vulnerability and he needs Two-Face to come and help him or something. Yeah. Whether that's like really overt and in your face or it's more of a subtle subtext thing, I'm very curious to see what they do with that.
Or if Harvey starts to question what is reality, right, at this point, because you have these people that it seems like at the end, that's their whole gimmick is like subterfuge, right? Because if you have White Rabbit and Jaina Hudson, right, they split into two people, but they're the same. You have Doubt, who I don't know who that is, but it seems like that's his entire thing is to spread seeds of doubt. Like maybe if this team is put together to, stifle Two-Face or Harvey or whatever it is, right? Because he starts to question what reality is, and like, is it the mind prison? Is it this court? Can he successfully, maintain appearances as Two-Face while also being Harvey, and what is that going to cause problems down the line, and then is that how Two-Face gets out, right? Because he's, he loses that grip. But no, yeah, very, very curious to see where this goes. And again, from the case of the month type vibe, like what other law tropes can Christian Ward pull out that, to play with some of these Gotham things? So, because at the end of the day, so I looked it up. The first one was the Zaz murder trial, and if it was him or not, right? Because it had some, it had some things that were Zaz, but they weren't Zaz. And in this one, it was just a divorce proceeding, right? So what other cases can we get out of Harvey here between the villains, and how much fun we can have with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the whole theme of the villains all representing kind of lies or like trickery or I think False Face especially. I mean, Face is literally in his name, and we've got it's a book about Two-Face. This idea of what the right face is, and you've got a pair of characters who are one person split in two. It feels like there's just a lot of theming to counteract Two-Face in general. So I mean, I don't necessarily think it's going to go down the path of he questions reality, but more just so that this is a team of villains assembled to specifically thematically counter Two-Face in a variety of ways. So very, very curious to see where they go with this. I again, it was a really enjoyable issue. I love the Batman fake out. It was a really nice touch as well. Lake was such an interesting character when she was introduced last time. Her being like used as like sort of the investigator this issue to help Harvey was also pretty cool. And we'll see where they go with that too. So no, I've been the interest has been maintained. It did not fall off with issue 2. I'm happy to say. So yeah, very good. All right, what are you giving Two-Face?
I'm gonna give this a 9. I really enjoyed this one.
Whoa, that's very high. I think I'll go with a straight 8 on this one. But it's very, very good. Art's gorgeous, like what it's doing. I suspect that I think I'm going to like it even more as it goes, just if it keeps like developing kind of like the thematic links between this main prison stuff and the real world stuff. So we're cool to see that. All right. Justice League, The Atom Project, issue 1, Ryan Parrott and John Ridley writing with Mike Perkins on the art. I didn't read this because, well, frankly, I just didn't want to. So
the completionist in me got the better of me, right? Because I want to know what's all going on with these powers. I think I'll be fine just reading Justice League Unlimited as we go. Also, that said, I was here for the Mike Perkins art, and I have to say it's not my favorite stuff. And I don't know if it's the colors here, if it's Adriana Lucas, just doesn't meld with the Mike Perkins art, but some of it looked kind of flat. And I like Perkins art because it gets kind of lost in the shadows and it plays with that, pretty well. Here. So this they get set up that in the beginning there's a guy on a train and he is looking to lay low. So he tries to buy some stuff from from like the dinner car, but they only take card and he only has cash. So he goes, no, never mind. And then all of a sudden these agents are on top of him and the atoms are on top of him. So you're like, oh man, is this is this one of the people that ended up with the powers like that we saw in Justice League Unlimited? Or, because this guy seems like pretty familiar. And come to find out that this is Captain Atom, and that the other Atoms, Ray Palmer and Ryan Choi, are looking for him. And it cuts to 3 weeks before, where Project Atom, which is the entire program to restore the power of the heroes to get that, from the end of Absolute Power. So they show up, this little kid on a playground ends up with some electric powers, starts to freak out, doesn't know what to do. The Atoms come in and teach him how to kind of dispel the energy. And they end up taking him up to the satellite because as we've seen in Justice League Unlimited, that it kind of hurts to pull the power. And so there's some of these people with the alpha level power that they want to keep an eye on until they can figure out how to do it safely. Part of this program is that they're testing the entire process on Captain Atom because he became a living human reactor, and that he lost his powers. So they're each time they find a new one of these new powers, they try to get it back into him. And this, of course, ends up driving him nuts because it hurts, right? And he ends up escaping the base. There's a lot of discussion in this issue between Choi and Palmer about if what they're doing is like right, because like, yes, the people that have their powers, like the superheroes know how to use them. These others, they don't, and that kind of makes them a threat, but only because of like the inexperience and like if it was earned or not. And it kind of gets into this discussion here on what does it mean to earn the power. And that's where Captain Atom is, kind of feels like less of himself, because as of right now, he's only a science project, right? As if they can figure this out by getting the powers into him. And so he ends up escaping, but I feel like there's a little bit more to it because there's these dialogue boxes that are coming that feel like it's a conversation in Captain Atom's head. And that starts at the beginning, right? So it'll tell him stuff. You'll be reading, it'll be talking about, do they know where he's heading? If they have half a brain, it's not rocket science. Well, I guess, they'll figure it out. So it's someone that, I don't know if it's occurring in Captain Atom or about Captain Atom, But when we get back to the reveal of him escaping and the Atoms coming to get him, it's like, do we need to intervene? And they say, no, he can handle himself. And that's where the soldiers that are with the Atoms start firing on Captain Atom, and his powers end up coming back, and he ends up taking the form that we know of. And funnily enough, Perkins kind of draws him looking like Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner. So I thought that was a pretty funny thematic, kind of thing here. It's almost they're talking like they talk about the replicants here, about him being too much of a danger, and if he knows what he is and whatnot. I guess the story's there. I'm reading too many other things to fully give it my attention. And I'm already dealing with a rogue Captain Atom in Jenny Sparks, right? So having him pull up here, it feels a bit, I know those two stories are the two stories are doing two different things, but it's kind of hard I've been dealing with that there. Now I have to care about it here. And it's just not giving me a lot to work with. Outside looking flat in some spots, Perkins' art's pretty solid. Again, his Captain Atom looks familiar enough. I recognize it early on. And then when he transforms by the end, you're just like, oh yeah, no, he has the design down pat. But yeah, I'm not sure about this one. I'm sure we can, infer story implications through all the other books we're reading. And I don't know if it's strong enough to keep going, But yeah, so I'll give this a 7 because it's traditionally it's not bad. I don't have the desire to keep going.
Sure, yeah, and nothing was that appealing to me about it. Obviously, Perkins' name on the art was a little interesting, but other than that, I just didn't really feel compelled. When you get a book from Ridley, there's going to be some of these big, life questions coming into play, and kind of like that whole what is deserved and what's not. That's interesting, but again, I don't need that right now. So yeah. All right, Batman Full Moon issue 3, Rodney Barnes writing with Steven Subic on the art. So yeah, third part of the werewolf story, and I actually didn't know going into this if this was the last issue or not. I couldn't remember if it was 3 issues, 4 issues, or what. But
right.
But no, it's not the final issue. We end with more to come. Still. But yeah, Batman has been turned into a werewolf. Although the first scene is a flashback to Constantine and Zatanna fighting vampires or whatever in days gone by. But
in the Louisiana swamps,
it's really just setting up the idea that they've fought these various type of monsters before. But Constantine does point out that the one that he has sympathy for are werewolves, because vampires are inherently kind of evil. They seduce people, they kill them, they take pleasure in killing people. Werewolves, though, most of the time are just people who have no say in what they're doing when they turn into a werewolf. And then that's kind of where we transition. And there's some gorgeous art there showing someone transform into a werewolf. Yeah.
It looks like it hurts.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, kudos to the art here for making it absolutely grotesque.
Yeah. But then we get back to kind of the cliffhanger we left off on, which is we have the Bat-werewolf versus the normal werewolf. And yeah, we just get some 3 or 4 pages of this glorious art with that wonderfully kind of textured black, furry, kind of wolfy look to them. With simple backgrounds, just proper fighting. Eventually, we start getting the perspective of Constantine and Jim Gordon who are watching this, and Gordon's not there yet. Actually, there's a fun sequence here that gives it a good bit of pacing, where Gordon gets the call that there's 2 wild animals fighting, and we get all the cop cars sort of screeching out of the station and going on their way. One of my favorite panels of the issue, which is in a few pages time, I think, is in between the 2 wolves fighting. You see a couple of their claws coming in from either side. You see the cop cars and all their headlights coming through the fog in the background. Really gorgeous stuff. That vibe of the cop cars coming through the misty night. Really good stuff. In between that though, we had Kirk Langstrom realizing that if he's going to face these beasts, he has to do it as a beast. So he chooses to turn into Man-Bat. So the werewolf versus werewolf fight quickly becomes werewolf versus Man-Bat.
It is a 3-man dance.
Oh dear. And those panels of Man-Bat like sort of taking off and flying into the city also look just gorgeous, like really dark and moody, gothic.
How do you prefer your Man-Bat? Do you like when he has the more traditional bat wings for arms, or do you like when the wings sprout out of his back?
Do you know, I've never really thought about it. I guess I would say the default is that the wings themselves are the arms.
Yeah.
I guess that's also just more realistic because that's what an actual bat is. But I'm not like mad that they've chosen to give him wings separate from the arms here.
No, I don't either. No, not that I hear it. It is a fun little design choice, and there's story implications. I feel like that's why they chose this design, but it makes him. This makes him more look monstrous than just a gigantic Man-Bat, right? This puts him on level with the werewolves.
I mean, it basically makes him a werewolf with wings. I mean, that's basically what he is now.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we got like choppers coming in and drones and whatnot. Yeah, just the atmosphere and the build up to this fight, and then Constantine and Zatanna arrive through a portal, and try to sort of get in and things. Is it's just really good fun. Zatanna tries to like use a spell to like sort of break the curse, but of course it doesn't work. And Gordon says, "Okay, you had your chance. We have to take shots now." And I love that you can just see like the flashes of gunfire coming through the fog. Also very good. Yeah, there's so much like, atmosphere, and it's all very cinematic and moody and dark, and just the way everything is represented. So they do take some bullets, but of course they're not silver bullets.
No. And I like Constantine asking, "You got any silver bullets in them?" And Gordon's like, "Not in the budget."
Yeah.
Right. So a bunch of little quips there.
So yeah, Man-Bat and like the regular werewolf kind of like take each other out, or like go off on their own, and Batman werewolf is sort of left standing there, and no one really puts it together that Batman's turned into the werewolf necessarily, or at least Gordon hasn't. He just kind of is like, wait. Someone stole Batman's clothes. What's going on here? So it's a whole thing. But Alfred sends in a drone after like they've distracted it long enough. Alfred drops a big net. I think Zatanna does a magic spell as well. But Alfred drops a big net in with some drones and has the drone fly the unconscious Bat-werewolf away from the scene of the crime, which is a very absurd visual actually. So that leads to later on him waking up chained to the table, and Bruce being like, "That's all right, Alfred. That's what I would have done. Yeah, this is smart. Right? You have to chain me up." Meanwhile, the regular werewolf's like tearing through SWAT team members in an alleyway. He's just covered in red, and blood. So again, just super like those entire pages. Once that happens, like the very next page when he's getting shot at, like that red tint stays there. So you've got this sort of like blood red moon look to it. For the rest of that scene. Yeah,
and he climbs up the fire escape to get to them. Right. Yeah. So then he's just sitting there perched with what looks like the stairs look like they've been twisted up by him. Right. As if it's like there's no escape. Right. Like, oh my God, it's proper horror movie stuff.
Yeah, really, really good. And that's when Bruce wakes up, and we also get this idea that the woman had her arm ripped off last issue is like still like believing in Talbot. Like, hey, Talbot's still a good man, and whatever. Like, you're starting to sound like a little bit unhinged, to be honest, lady, with how much you're forgiving him for this. But yeah, that's fine. Batman goes out just on his bike. He's not even dressed as Batman. He just goes up to like Man-Bat after he's had his like head kicked in by the werewolf, and he's like, "Hey, did I do any of this to you?" And he's like, "The beast within did it to me." But yeah, so this is an interesting Man-Bat actually, because he's actually still completely, him when he's in monster form. He's still talking and whatnot.
He's like that hybrid version.
Yeah.
And yeah, because Batman ripped his wing off, and that's why I said there's a storytelling thing to this, right? Where it'd be different if that was his arm with the wing attached to it. I don't think Kirk would be this chill, but it looks like he's whatever device he has here, it's reattaching it to him.
Yeah, he's moving it back onto him. Yeah. So Yeah, basically it's like, hey, where's this guy going? Where's the werewolf going? And Bruce is like, oh, because I got bit and I'm sort of part of the werewolf like network or whatever you want to call it. I can kind of sense where he is. I know he's at the docks, and he's going to Romania, which is where the curse comes from, which is actually kind of another reference to classic Wolfman. Yeah. So it's like, hey, maybe this curse can end if we like take out or get to where the curse began. That's probably what the werewolf wants to do. So, yeah, we have to do that. Constantine gives Bruce some silver bullets for the trip in case like all else fails. He's got an option to take himself out. Yeah, and it's all kind of like, hey, if you die, it means Zatanna's single again. So I'm not against that necessarily.
I low-key hate this Constantine. I don't outright hate Constantine all the time, but this version that's only interested in Zatanna. Like, it's a bit, I don't know if that is, by design. Like, we're not supposed to take anything he says that much, but I low-key kind of hate him.
Yeah, no, every like chance he gets, he's saying, hey, remember that time we had sex in the bush in front of that building? Remember that time we had sex after we beat up those guys? Like, he just keeps, it's to the point where he's been problematic. He's been he's harassing her, basically, with how much he's bringing up stuff.
And she doesn't give it any air or anything. She just walks right, keeps whatever she's doing. She just keeps going and whatever. But yeah, this version of Constantine do not like.
Yeah, so the end of the issue is just Bruce and Zatanna arriving in Romania, and they go to walk in the forest, and she's like, hey, I could teleport us where we're going. But he's like, no, we're walking into the heart of darkness. Like, we're better doing this the old-fashioned way. And it is kind of like the forest is just pitch black. The final panel is just darkness that they've walked into. So, yeah, no, cool. I'm assuming the next issue is the final one, and this was a nice setup for it. I mean, this was mostly the werewolf fights, but we've been building up to that for a couple issues, and it paid off because the art was absolutely gorgeous. Man-Bat getting involved was a genius idea, but even like all the cops arriving the way they did was like so much atmosphere and made it feel big and like special. So
yeah, for sure. And again, it still feels very much like a horror book.
Yeah,
it plays with the shadows. Stuff is just out of reach. Like we see that the Talbot goes after the cops, but we don't see, everything that happens is just off panel. Yeah, which I think helps, which helps the terror stay ramped up.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it's a really fun book, and like the writing's fine, but the art is like really doing a lot of the lifting. Like the art is making it feel kind of special. So, yeah, there you go. That's Batman Film. What are you giving it, Matt?
I am giving this an 8.5.
Yeah, I am. Honestly, this was such a fun, exciting read. I'm going to go with 9. I think the art's just that good that it pulls it up to there. So, there you go. And that will take us out of the final part of the show, where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, panel/moment, best cover, best art, and of course, top 5 books. So, Matt, what is your panel/moment of the week? Hooey.
All right. There was some in Batgirl that I really loved. Just some of the character stuff at play. That picture that she has that then later plays into the, how she describes which of the Bat family members she pulls things from. That was a real fun thing. Batman Full Moon, we just talked about this. There was a whole bunch of fun werewolf things. Ivy had a couple. But that was mainly due to the layouts. But mine's going to be from Absolute Superman. And it's going to be that image of Lara with the gun, ready to go get her husband back. Solid stuff.
Yes, her lava gun.
Her lava gun.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things to pick from here. I think I'm going to go with it's basically 5 pages, which feels a bit of a cheat, but it is one continuous fight moment in Batgirl. I think that has to be my pick this week, although there's several werewolf moments from Full Moon that I could pick as well, and a couple other things from elsewhere, but I think that has to be the pick. For cover this week, there's a pretty nice Mike Perkins cover for Absolute Superman, which is pretty good. There's a Serge Acuna cover for Birds of Prey that I kind of like for how like 90s the hair is on Nubia and Black Canary. There's like an Alex Ross looking cover for Shazam That's a variant, which I quite like. It's by Mark Spears, but it's very Alex Ross.
The proportions are kind of off though. Like Billy looks like he's built like a fridge.
Yeah, there's very Alex Ross. Like if I think of Alex Ross drawing Shazam, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. I like the variant for Full Moon, which is like sort of a werewolf with a bat cape, howling in front of the moon.
That's a Francavilla.
That's Francavilla. You can just tell by the colors. Like Francavilla likes black on orange. That's just what he does. He loves putting black on orange.
With some yellow in there.
Yeah, that's cool. I also really like the main Batgirl cover. I would like the variant as well by Takara. I just think it's a little bit pin-uppy in a way that I don't think suits Cass.
Yeah.
Even though I like some of the art quality to it, but I think the choice of pose and whatever is a bit iffy. My pick of the week though for cover is actually going to be a variant for Two-Face though. It's the Alex Ekman Lawn variant, which is like Harvey's face splitting in two and like the full Two-Face like scarred face emerging from within. It's just the right type of horror movie, like crazy for me. I'm into it. So yes, that's my pick. What you got?
Well, so you've covered a lot of the ones I was going to talk about. That Full Moon one, I just really love the Francavilla. And then there's another Two-Face variant, but it's the Christian Ward, and it's got Harvey and the Two-Face, like the split, and then in the mind prison, it's got Two-Face in there holding the bars, and that's real solid. But there's a Jenny Frisian Poison Ivy cover, and that's what I'm going to go with. It's got these shades of green. She's covered with roses. It's what I want in a Frisian cover.
Cool. All right. Best art, Matt.
Yeah, best art. This one's tough because I really love Batgirl and I really loved Two-Face, and so it comes down. And I also loved Ivy, but that's every time. However, I think that just the long panels in Batgirl puts it over. So yeah, mine's gonna be Batgirl.
I was thinking it would be Batgirl when I was reading it, honestly, and then I read Full Moon, and I think I have to go with Full Moon.
There you go.
Full Moon's just too special feeling and just eerie and atmospheric, and really lends well to the werewolf part of the story. As a foghorn goes off.
The garbage guys, it's bulk pickup day, and apparently they're communicating to each other via horn blasts, and it's just they never do this.
I was laughing,
of course, today
during Atom Project because it felt like they were doing all of the things they could while she were trying to talk. Right inside your window.
I thought about stopping and I was just like, no, I'll just power through. I don't care about this book that much.
All right.
Yeah.
Top 5, Matt. On you go.
All right, so number 1's gonna be Batgirl. 2 is Two-Face. 3 is Absolute Superman. 4 is Full Moon, and 5 is Poison Ivy.
All right, my number 1 is Batgirl. My number 2 is Batman Full Moon. My number 3 is Absolute Superman. My number 4 is Two-Face. My number 5 is Birds of Prey? No, Shazam. I'll go Shazam. Oh, Shazam this week. So, all right, there you go. So I will now tell you what is coming next week from DC Comics. And week 2 has been a little quieter, so we should. So I'll be doing a couple of Patreon books, is what that means. But next week we have Absolute Batman issue 4, Batman and Robin 17, Batman Dark Patterns issue 2, Aquaman issue 1. There's DC vs. Vampires World War V issue 6. There's the Batman Wayne Family Avengers 146. And then there's facsimile editions, and that's it. Yeah, so it's actually even quieter than I thought it was.
You know what? I'm going to read all those books. I know 3 of them are Batman, and one's Aquaman, but I'm gonna do all 4 of them.
Yeah. Oh, I've only got 4? I thought I had 5. Oh, yeah, I've only got 4.
No, you're not doing the vampires one.
I'm not, but for some reason I just assumed that I had 5.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely doing 2 Patreon books next week. Kidding me?
Yeah,
I got 4 regular books.
We'll talk about which ones. Maybe I can pop in because I did pick up American Vampire after all the talking.
Oh,
so,
okay. All right, nice. Yeah,
so
it'll be American.
That one.
It'll be American Vampire and Batman: The Outsiders. Those are
okay. Well, I can get caught up. I think on American Vampire.
Ooh,
should be good to go.
All right, cool. So yeah, quiet week, thankfully, next week after what feels like 4 weeks in a row of just. I mean, this week wasn't. Yeah, this week wasn't too bad, but like, yeah, those 2 back-to-back weeks at Christmas were heavy, very, very heavy. So yeah, there you go. But that is the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. You can, of course, support the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can get the show a little bit early, just a little bit. But help keep it coming, and you also get access to bonus content that relates to all the other stuff that I do on YouTube and other movie podcasts and stuff like that. So check out some of that stuff if you haven't over at MailFuzz Movies or MailFuzz TV. But that is the show. So like, subscribe, ding the bell, all the usual things. Helps out a bunch if you do. But thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.